hit subscribe. Subscribe to my guy, Uncle D. Tell him Big Bass sent you.
Spurling. I'm an attorney here in Houston, Texas, an advocate for black men, largely because I am a black man. I'm a black father, I have black sons. Hey man, I do what I do.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Big shout out to Eric Von Eric for being the first person here in the broadcast. I want to thank you all. I certainly do appreciate the time that you spend with me learning. The word of the night is learning. The word of the night is learning, okay? Because we are trying to learn to understand. We are attempting to learn to master this world. We want to become knowledgeable. And then at that point, we can make wise decisions because we'll have the knowledge base. We'll have the wisdom of the ages, if you will. Okay, we'll have the knowledge base that people who are long studied have. And I certainly do appreciate, again, I want to humbly appreciate the time you all spend with me hanging out, learning. This is not a channel for everybody. You know, this is, and the fact that I could get thousands of people in here night in and night out, it says a lot. Thank you so much, Mark the Freelance. I appreciate you for being a long-time member of the Wrench Mob. I certainly do appreciate all my people. Make sure you check in. Let me know where you're checking in from. You might be from Liverpool. You may be from New York. You may be from Chicago, Los Angeles, Honolulu. I've had people all the way down in Colombia. I want to thank everybody for being here with me today. You just don't know how humbled I am to have you here. But nevertheless, as I always say, my name is Dennis Spurling. I would like to welcome you all to the Dennis Spurling podcast. And you know, one of the conversations happening in Black America right now is a perception that many Mexicans, especially in the United States, hold racist, anti-Black attitudes. And we've seen tensions flare up in neighborhoods, online spaces, even in political behavior. For example, we've seen, recent election, you had a vast majority of Hispanic men vote for Donald Trump, which was obviously against many of their interests, and a large percentage of Latin women voted for Donald Trump, which is against, unless you're in a certain tax bracket and you have all your paper and all your family member have their situation straight with immigration, it probably was not in your interest to vote for Donald Trump. Nevertheless, many of them did. And, you know, many interpreted that through the lens of seeking proximity to whiteness or acceptance within the dominant racial order. But here's the contradiction, okay? When you look at how Northern European-based definitions of whiteness operate here in the U.S., you see something very different. Historically, what we call WASP, or white Anglo-Protestant, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, I believe that's how you say it, or Anglo-American whiteness is very narrow, okay? It's not an all-inclusive sort of whiteness. You understand? Just because you're light doesn't mean you're white. You're not the right kind of white, so you need to get out of sight. Bars, right? Bars. Somebody type bars in the chat room. But either way, I mean, you know, Southern Europeans weren't included. They didn't include Jewish people. It didn't include Mediterranean peoples. It has certainly not automatically included Mexicans, who are widely understood in the U.S. racial categories as non-white or ethnically distinct. As a matter of fact, they have a category which says white non-Hispanic, okay, or non-Latino white. In other words, we're going to separate you all from us. So we have to ask a deeper question. If Mexican society is built on such a visible mixture of indigenous, European, and African, how did such a rigid racial hierarchy develop? How'd y'all get like that? How did all this anti-blackness take root in a society that itself emerged from racial blending under colonial rule? I mean, and this is where the perception versus reality becomes critical. The perception is that Mexico is simply indigenous and Spanish. If you think about it, they never talk about their African roots, do they? What happened? What happened to all those black people? You know, they had nearly as many Africans that were sent to Mexico as were sent to the United States. And the thing is, what happened to them? Somebody type, what happened? What happened? I'm trying to know. I want to know what happened to them. Okay? Because that has not been explained to me. All right, we don't know what happened to them. All right, and Mexico developed on, again, you know, we understand that you have the Spanish. We get that. We saw that. We get the indigenous, right? And the indigenous bloods were subordinated, but the African blood was stigmatized. Okay, it over time mixture occurred, but the hierarchy remained. Lighter skin meant mobility, proximity to European ancestry meant privilege. African ancestry was absorbed, it was renamed, or it was just quietly straight out ignored or erased from official identity. And that brings us to a phrase many of us have heard: the black grandmother hidden in the closet. Okay, somebody type abuela. Somebody, anybody type la abuela negra. Okay, I know that's a stretch for my Ebonic speakers, but la abuela negra, what the black grandmother, okay? Because across Latin America, and particularly in Mexico, family stories include an unspoken acknowledgement of the ancestor, that African ancestry that was downplayed and softened or reclassified as something like moreno, indio, teglino, anything but black, okay? That wasn't accidental. It was a long shadow of colonial racial ranking. So instead of flattening this conversation into they're racist, okay, they want to be white, we're going to dig a little deeper, okay? We're going to look at what happened to the black grandma. That's what we want to know, because we want to know, some of us might have been related to their black grandma. We might have a great grandma that spoke Spanish and she just disappeared in Mexico somewhere. And that's what we're going to be unpacking tonight. Because, see, perception is one thing, history says another. And when you understand the history, we can have a more honest conversation about race and identity in Mexico and the United States, and also in the broader scheme of Latin America. Now, again, okay, here's where I want to kind of, let's bring it on home. I need you all to see something. Okay, somebody type see something in the chat room. See, I didn't know Mexicans were racist. Okay, I grew up around Mexicans in Los Angeles and they seemed pretty cool to me. I mean, I did not know that Mexicans were as racist as they have been. Now, there was secret racism. I mean, it just snuck up on us. You understand what I'm saying? And so, you know, let you kind of hear a little bit about the Mexican racism. Y'all hit the #1 button. Let me know you can hear these videos clearly. You guys have seen some of these videos before, but we're going to let it happen. Hit the #1 button.
I don't understand when I say that Mexicans are culturally racist. They think that I'm calling us openly racist. We are culturally racist, and this is how. Part of our culture is to frown upon dark-skinned people. It's been passed down to us by the Spaniards, by our colonizers, by the people that conquered us, taught us that dark skin is inferior, light skin is superior. We were taught that. It was passed down to us, meaning it's part of our culture.
Now, again, I want you all to understand how we're interpreting this through the lens of, but all of y'all have a black grandma. So are you saying that you looked at grandma as though she was inferior? Did grandma know that you all were looking at her as though she was inferior as she was in the kitchen cooking? I need to understand that. Did you all tell la abuela, yo abuela, tú no buena? Abuela, tú no. Tú es muy poquillo, abuela, tú no grande porque yo soy blanco, pero tú es la morena. Is that what you were telling grandma? You in there asking grandma to cook and clean, and you telling her, so how did y'all treat grandma like she was a servant? How dare you? How dare you treat grandma like she was a servant? I bet all y'all grandmas right now are looking at y'all just like this grandma is looking. Look at this. Look, this is why she look like that. Look how she look. See, she looking at you. That's a side eye. That's La Abuela side eye right there. I can't believe y'all, that's how y'all gonna treat me, huh? Just ungrateful, just ungrateful. She's still black. And so she's still having those black conversations even in Spanish. Okay, but we're gonna let this gentleman keep talking and explaining. Explain on.
We are culturally racist
fair
in this
use.
aspect. That doesn't mean I go out in the streets and want to hurt black people because they're black. Right. It means that our teachings, the way we're raised, is that we are raised to subconsciously believe that dark skin is inferior and light skin is superior. Another element in our Mexican culture is Univision News, Univision channel. That channel is run by white Latinos.
Somebody type white Latinos in the chat room. Somebody type white Latinos in the chat room.
The ideology.
Again, we want to understand why these people who are taking over the United States, this is who we're going to have to deal with in 20 years. These are who your children are going to have to deal with. We need to understand this culture, okay? We need to understand these people who are taking, because we were surprised. I think most foundational black Americans like, we didn't know they was racist. We liked the Mexicans. We thought, they can dance real good. We thought they were brown. Where did they get that brown from? We thought, okay. Matter of fact, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan, they said the Mexicans are cool. They are the indigenous people. They're part of the lost tribes, the Shabazz, et cetera, et cetera. We thought that's what I was raised with. And so I was shocked to find out that the Mexicans had these anti-black sentiments. We were shocked. Somebody typed shocked in the chat room.
Subliminal teachings that they teach is very similar to Fox News. White supremacist-ish. They make efforts to depict sharing news about dark-skinned people is when they do something wrong. But yet, when they want to mention anything that has to do with light-skinned people, specifically white people, is to depict them as them doing good deeds around the world, feeding the homeless, etc. You get it. My grandmother was visiting one day from Mexico. She's never lived in the United States. She has no idea what life is out here. She was watching Univision News, where they depicted a black American committing a crime. She turned around and said, Oye, estos negros solo estorban, ¿verdad? Hey, these black folks, all they do is get in the way, huh? Here's the interesting part. She's never met a black person in her life. She has
never met a black person. Abuela never met a black. You black. She met you. You are clearly black. I'm looking at you right now, sir. You look like my middle son. But keep going.
No idea what it's like to interact with a black person, but yet she already has an opinion about black people as a whole. Why? Because part of our culture, in this particular case, Univision News, since we were children, we have been subliminally taught the blacks are bad, criminals, etc.
I mean, do you all see these people they go out of their way, every ethnicity, they go out of their way to say bad things about black people. We don't even they don't even know black people and they want to say bad things about. I want you to think about that. Why are we always on their mind? Okay, that's another thing. Now, I'm going to let another video play. It's going to be a little bit of profanity. You're going to hear some racial epithets, a well-known racial epithet slung around. Hit the number 1 button. monkeys. We didn't know these people were racist like this. We were shocked to find out that these people were racist. Like, you know, y'all cut our grass and make tacos. Y'all fun. We enjoy Cinco de Mayo with you. You know, and then come to find out you're racist as hell. Where did this come from? What did we do to you? We didn't even know you had that many black people in Mexico to be racist. Who'd you practice on before you got here? Okay, the way y'all tell it, the way y'all tell it, there are no black people. So who did you practice your anti-black racism on? It's not gonna work on us. But anyway, let's keep going.
Don't touch me. Touch me.
Now she clearly has about 2 or 3 black grandmas in her family. I can look at her. I'm looking at her. Okay, I'm looking at that nose, and I'm looking at that forehead. And yet she got the nerve to be calling somebody the N-word. You understand what I'm saying? Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Don't touch me. Your man's bleeding. Your man's bleeding. Your man's bleeding.
But she clearly got all the bad genes. She got the stubby genes. But let's keep going.
Your man's bleeding.
I mean, they are showing their whole, complete, and entire backside. I mean, they got real comfortable just throwing out the N-word. I mean, you know, I guess that's what comes with number. Here's another. Let's check this out. Okay.
And bitch, do something about
Family friendly.
Stop playing me before I beat your ass.
This is Chicago. This is way up in Chicago. This is our town.
Stop playing me before I beat the fuck out of you. Stop playing me before I beat the fuck out of you. Stop fucking playing me before I beat the fuck out of you. I'ma show your ass a nigga. I'ma show your ass a nigga. I'ma show your ass a nigga. Say it again. Say it again, bitch. Yeah. Say it again. Yeah. Say it again. Yeah. Say it again. Cause you won't fucking look at us. Don't scream that bitch.
Now you beat up.
Don't scream that bitch.
Now you beat up. See, that's what you had. You should have left her alone. She looked like she can fight. All right, now you're on the ground, hooting and hollering. And again, you know, black Americans, us, the real black Americans, we not to be played when it comes to racism. We've dealt with this for 400-something years. We are not the ones. You might have been able to get away with that in your own country when those people down there don't take pride in their blackness. But see, we are a non-assimilated group of black people. Okay, there's a big difference between us and the other ones. We are not assimilated. We have not assimilated. We're not interested in assimilating. We like who we are, and that's the fundamental difference between us and everybody else. But again, they know they're racist. Okay, they know. See, this is the thing.
Black Latinos are gonna hate me for saying this, but y'all are the reason that we cannot become truly unified with black people. Y'all are the reason that black people are on the fence about non-black Latinos. It's because y'all.
They not on the fence, baby. They all the way on the other side of the fence. They've pinned you. See, the thing you have to understand about black people, we are tuned in to racism. We're specifically tuned in to anti-black racism. And once you've proven yourself to the collective of foundational black American people that you are culturally racist, we're not going to deal with you. It'll be 100 years before we side with you on anything. Once we determined in the 1980s and 90s that the Koreans were racist, we don't even deal with it. We go eat their food and everything, but we don't really kick it with them like that. You see what I mean? The Koreans can't really get black people to do much of anything. You understand? And so that's kind of where we are. All right? That's what happens once we pegged you as racist, and it's true because you admit it. I don't think it's any coming back from that.
Are very anti-black and won't even do the bare minimum of just stop saying the N-word. Like y'all won't even stop saying that word. And y'all don't realize.
The truth is they have a black grandma. The truth is they N-words too. That's the cold part of this is where we going. This is why this is so ridiculous. These people have as much African DNA in them as we do in us, except they have assimilated, they have amalgamated. I mean, think about it. We had 340 Africans brought to this country. They had 200 to 250,000 brought to Mexico, and Mexico is smaller, and they have a smaller population. So what does that tell you? It tells me that all of them, but for the recently arrived Europeans, none of them would pass the one drop rule. That's what that tells me. You see? And that's why this sounds ridiculous. I mean, you brown and you call yourself being prejudiced.
Even though a lot of non-Black Latinos see themselves as like socially higher up than Black people and Black Latinos, that's not how white people see us, y'all.
That's not how Black people see you either. Can I just be honest with you all? Y'all the people that cut our grass and clean our houses. That's how a lot of Black people see you. You the people that put our roof on our garage, on our houses, and serve us food, and drive around in pickup trucks and hang out at Home Depot. That's how Black people see you. So it's not just the white people that see you as not white. Everybody sees, I hate to say it, but this is a social class. So you still looking at it from a lens of Latin America. This is not Latin America. This is Anglo-America. And it is always going to be a black and white country. It is always going to be a black and white question. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm saying. When we see you, we don't see racial superiority. We see, can I get some sriracha on my tacos? I'm just saying, that's how Black people feel. Okay, I'm just saying. Look, am I lying? We see you with the little ice cream cart pushing it down the street with the little pork rinds with the lemon sauce and the watermelon with the lime on it. We don't see y'all as superior. Maybe you see yourself as superior, but we don't, and nobody else does. I think there was a poll taken, and nobody wanted to be Mexicans. I'm just saying. Nobody. Out of all the people in America, nobody. I'm just saying. I didn't mean to do this, okay? But how you see yourself and how the rest of the world sees you is two different things. Now, look, I like you. I like the Mexican people. I love the Latino people. I'm cool with you. I particularly like Black Latinos, okay? I like the Brazilians. I like the Dominicans, okay? I like the Afro-Colombians, Afro-Cuban. I'm cool with you. Those are as far as I'm concerned, they're Black, they're African. And as long as they embrace that, I'm all right with that. You see what I'm saying? But the truth is, family, you all have this warped perception of yourself. And the only friend that you could have had was Black Americans. We're the only ones we have a PhD in dealing with white folk in America. And you all thought, oh, we'll just be racist too, just like the white folk. And they like, nah, heck nah, that ain't gonna happen. You are not us. You think Black people delineate? White people have delineated also. And so y'all tried. Y'all was like, yeah, come on, we're going to be down with you all. And, and then y'all was like, yeah, come on, look, we're just like you. Now, did this work out well? That didn't work out well, did it? No. See,
it's been happening frequently at the 333 Miami Avenue Federal Court building. Janet Correa's husband was detained this week. According to her immigration lawyer, he has already been placed on
So Trump didn't care if he was singing. This is the lady that was singing the song. This is this lady. This the same lady. Okay, that's her. You went from that to this right here. You went from that to the
federal court building.
See what I'm saying?
Janet Correa's husband was detained this week. According to her immigration lawyer, he has already been placed on expedite removal.
Yeah.
That's unfair.
Hey, baby, that's who you voted for.
Let me ask you.
No. Don't forget this. I want you to don't forget that. That's you too. You did that. Do that. Okay, so when you out here doing this, and now you around here doing that. Okay.
Not believe she's going back home without her nephew, 29-year-old Yasael Almonte Mejia. Like many other immigrants, when their case is dismissed, they are detained at the hallway.
See that? And she not the only one. She's not the only one. I'm trying to tell you, they wanted to get us, right? But they settling for brown people. That's how these white folk are. Not all white people.
Mr. Trump,
yeah, and I was That was a mistake.
Yeah!
Here we go.
Trump!
A few minutes later. Look, you know Trump. Trump is trying to like get off the stage, baby. Get off. You know Trump. You couldn't call him up. You couldn't call him up.
All the way to the White House. Beyond betrayal. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign,
During the campaign, he said, we're going to deport all of these people. Who you think he was talking about? Y'all thought they was going to send black people home. Y'all didn't know we weren't immigrants, did you? Y'all thought, no. So y'all thought that we were immigrants and they're going to get rid of all these black people and it was just going to be y'all cozied up next to white folk. And white folk like, nah, we don't necessarily like the N-words, but we like y'all less. You all are foreigners. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. I'm just pointing it out to you. It didn't work. And y'all have a black grandma. White people know y'all have a black grandma. Y'all got a black grandma, an indigenous grandma, and the Europeans that you come from are the ass end of Europe. The Portuguese and the and the Spanish were invaded by black and Arabs for 800 years. Y'all have been defiled. You understand what I'm saying? You were the butt end. You are the crusty butt end of Europe as far as these Northern Europeans are concerned. You understand? When it comes to racial hierarchy, ... So yeah, so you low standing.
The elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that he was not going to touch the documented people.
And you believe it. And you believe that. That's whose fault is that? Whose fault is that, baby? Whose fault is that? I need you to understand whose fault you think that is. Is it your fault, right? For believing what the white man had to say? Is it your fault? Because see, now y'all got a whole nother level of understanding. Now you understand.
Empathize and sympathize with the black community. I've never been able to do that before because I would hear them say things like, oh, we walk down the street and we...
He got two black grandmas. Matter of fact, he got a black granddaddy and a black grandma. I can see that.
Get profiled and, cops will just suddenly stop and frisk or whatever just because of the color of their skin. And I always thought like, it's a little bit of a stretch. It feels like
you was thinking these blacks just need to work harder. Somebody think work harder. Trabajo duro. Work harder. That's what you was thinking. Duro trabajo. That's what you was thinking. And then now you getting profiled. Look, that's what happened to you. You see?
Like a little bit of a stretch. That person must be doing something, right? And obviously,
he must be doing something.
I've never...
That black person must have been doing something because, I'm back to blue no matter who. Right?
Experienced that before. I've never felt that way before and stuff. And so I always thought like, ignorantly, by the way, on my part, thinking like, I think you guys are, because I'm brown, I've never...
Clearly you brown. Clearly you brown. Clearly.
Never felt that and stuff like that, I'm also a minority. But now...
Oh, you're a minority
unless it
now.
wasn't the cops.
Oh, you're a minority. Go ahead.
Cops are just randomly to go and checking in the past. But now it's our turn, right? Now we feel it. Now we feel like, crap, can I just go down the street? Do I need my paper? It's like, why are you stopping me? I'm a U.S. citizen. We're not doing anything wrong.
Because you brown, sir. You brown. It's called racial profiling. It's the thing that black people have been saying for decades. I believe walking while black, driving while black. What else? Riding a bike while black. For all these offenses, black people have been shot before and killed. Okay, these are all holding a cell phone while black, being at an ATM while black. All of these offenses have caused black people to lose their life at the hands of law enforcement. And here you are, shocked. I mean, you blacker than me. I mean, I'm just saying, I know I got a lot of lights beaming on me right now, but you blacker than me. Okay, you are, and you should know better. If I'm out here saying, man, these cop pulling niggas over every goddamn day, shit, you should have believed me when I told you. You just should have believed me. And you a foreigner. You don't look like you're white or black. Okay, again, I'm trying to help y'all understand, sir. Y'all have a high opinion of yourself, and these white folk don't have that type of opinion of you. Okay, I'm just saying. Let's keep going.
And now we're being persecuted. And so now I'm thinking like, crap, this is what the black community meant, you know, and I kind
Somebody type those blacks. This is what those blacks were talking about.
I feel bad. Well,
this is what we was talking about.
I don't kind of feel. I feel bad because I never really could understand where they were coming from or where you guys were coming from. But I can assure you that now that it's here with us too, it's like crap. I honestly, legitimately didn't think it was real.
Yes, I know.
But it's real as hell.
And, you know, all the black people in the chat room say, yeah, we know. We know. we know. We resting though. No matter how many pleas you cop, no matter how much splaining you do, we're still gonna be in the house. Y'all gonna take this. Let me see what time it is. Y'all have about 2 years and 9 months left of this ass whooping that y'all gonna take from these white boys and ICE. And we gonna be chilling in the house about another two years and 8 months. And then we're gonna go vote. And we don't necessarily know how we're gonna vote. Okay, but yeah, it's not time for that ass whooping to be up yet. You still got that ass whooping. So we'll let you deal with it. But go ahead, keep on explaining. I'm enjoying the explaining.
And
I'm enjoying the explaining.
Minority groups that are targeted and persecuted pretty much. And it's
minority.
Right now
We're not minorities. We are black. Matter of fact, we've delineated from black. We are now foundational black. Not to be confused with African black or Caribbean black. We are foundational black, see? So now we got our own category within the category because we don't want nobody. We're not a minority. Let me tell you what we're not going to be. We're not going to be a minority. We're not going to be a people of color. And we're not going to be melanated, okay? Because polar bears are melanated and so are crickets. What we're going to be is foundational black Americans. And everybody else, you all can handle your own business. So don't put us in the minority category. They're treating you that way because you're Mexican. You see what I'm saying? Because technically Jewish people are minorities too. And white women are minorities too, but they don't get treated like that. It's because of how you look. That's what it is, sir. Go ahead. Praise God.
You guys have had your turn when, you know, cops were just in bigger cities, urban areas, stopping disproportionately.
But he just fumbling over his words. Bless his heart. Go ahead.
You know, the black community and stuff.
Let me go and get him out there. Go on, get on out of here. I don't want to embarrass that poor fella. He just fumbling over his words. He just don't know what. Let's talk to a happy Latina person. Come on, happy Latina person. I want to see some happy Latinas. Come on back, girl. Let's make her. What were you saying?
I moved to Mexico City about a year ago,
yes.
And I have to say, I think this is a great time for me to say this. Actually, one of the things that I miss the most about the United States.
What'd you miss?
Is African American people. I kid you not.
God,
I mean, there's no African Americans in Mexico. I mean, there is, but not like in abundance like here.
Not the same. I know.
And I remember when I got back and I was in LA, I went to Delilah's and there was a jazz band playing, and they were all African American, and I was just staring at them with so much love and gratitude for their culture. And I was like, oh my God, I miss black people so much. I mean, American black people. I was just so grateful
American black people.
like
okay,
their
baby.
Culture, their influence in the United States and me and us, from food, from language to music to dance to everything. And
everything. She missed everything. And she may not have might not necessarily have a black grandmother, but she clearly has a black boyfriend. Somebody type black boyfriend in the chat room. Go ahead. That vitamin D is getting you, baby. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just like having like a moment when I got back. And anyways, I love African American people. And thank y'all so much for being such an integral part of my world. And
you are welcome.
Teaching us minorities, ethnic people how to speak up and stand up for ourselves. And how to be leaders and how to have good morals and values and ethics. And I hope
you just now finding out all of this stuff. I mean, you just learned that this is what we've been doing all these hundreds of years. You just now learning something. You must be, they catching hands over there, boy. They are just, they trying to get us off. They trying to compliment us outside. They at least maybe we could just get them into the yard. We not coming outside, baby, but you keep telling us these nice things. We appreciate it. Go ahead.
I hope y'all enjoy the tacos my people and me have, and you know, the music and everything, salsa, cumbia, tejano,
yeah, all that is from Africans. But go ahead, baby.
I hope y'all enjoy our contribution as well.
We do.
But anyways, I just want to say I love Africa.
So all the brothers out there, somebody type thick Latina in the chat room. Ladies, all you ladies out there, type Latin lover in the chat room. I'm sure y'all done went on a cruise and found you a little Paco to tighten you up while you're out there on that boat. And I know what you do. I know what y'all do on them boats. That's why they don't want you black people coming on their little princess cruises anymore, because y'all be doing too much. I know what you do. But anyway,
American people, and I'm so grateful for their influence in my life in the United States and around the world.
Yes.
It's like the saying goes, you don't know what you have until it's gone.
You
and
don't.
I missed y'all the most
I bet
when
you
I
did.
moved to Mexico.
Yes.
Love y'all.
Oh, she blowing kisses. Somebody type black grandma in the chat room. Boy, it's somehow a butt whooping can help people get their mind right. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Now, again, okay, for my foundational black American family, it was shocking to see all this, all this anti-black bias. It's apparently they're coming around. Apparently must be having to do something with ICE. Apparently they're coming around, okay? We still not coming outside. I want y'all to be absolutely certain that we are not coming outside. However, we are definitely happy to see you all coming around like that. You'll learn. Like I said, y'all still have some more time on the clock, okay? And it's gonna be hard, okay? But it's shocking to see how much of this anti-black bias exists in parts of Mexican and Latino communities. And that shock came from a real place. We lived side by side for generations. They were so humble, especially places like Texas and California and Arizona and all across the Southwest. We shared neighborhoods and music. We'd go to their party. Them people party all night. They just treat you so well. They be out there cooking barbecue on an old beat up rim of a car. They do their thing. Little chickens in the yard. I'm down the street at my grandma's house. Every damn chicken wake me up to go to school. But we share your culture. We share your food. There are countless black and Latino couples. Clearly, that's how we dance together. We party together. We break bread together. So when we start encountering these anti-black attitudes that popped up when y'all start getting some numbers, it's like the minute y'all found out y'all were the biggest minority. We are 14%. As soon as y'all found out that y'all were 14%, it's like that whole attitude changed. Y'all got Marco Rubio and all these other people in charge. Y'all just tripped out on us. You see? But see, here's the thing. It hits different because when you start learning history, it tells a different story. There's absolutely no way y'all should be that racist. Mexico received hundreds of thousands of enslaved Africans. Afro-descendants helped build Veracruz. They worked the sugar fields. They shaped the music. They influenced the language. They left a big fingerprint all over the culture. And see, that's not an opinion. That's documented history. So somehow that ancestry, that African ancestry, it gets treated like a footnote. And here's the thing. Some families openly claim their Spanish roots. Others highlight Lebanese, Iberian ancestry. Indigenous identity is embraced, but they leave out the African. Okay? And that part, they just soften it by saying they rename it and they fold it into something called moreno. And they push it into the background. And that's where the phrase comes from, the secret black grandmother. Not because she didn't exist, but because the colonial caste thinking trained people to distance themselves from blackness, and that's a contradiction, okay? Now, you can't benefit from black African culture and rhythm and dance and musical structure and the food traditions and blending that and define it as Latin identity, okay? And at the same time act as if African ancestry is foreign. You can't live in a society built on mixture and pretend that African strand isn't part of the braid, okay? And so we're gonna deal with that. We're gonna deal with the African presence in Mexico and how it's not marginal, because we wanna understand. Now, my audience and my people who've been here for a minute, they understand the concept Blanqueamiento because I've talked about it before. And you hear them people, they talk about la raza, that means the race. And they have a term called mejor la raza, which basically means better the race, right? And that's that color hierarchy, that's that caste mentality, you know, and we're not confused as Black Americans. We get what's going on, okay? It means you all want to push your African ancestry in the background, and we understand the system. And what we're doing here is bringing it to the front. See, here's the difference between us and y'all, and I'm gonna let you see a video. This video really sums up who we are as a group of people and why we don't deal like that, okay? And it's the fundamental difference between us and every other group of people here in this country. We are not looking to assimilate, okay? Black Americans do not want to assimilate with white folk. All right, and that's the difference between us and everybody else. Let me see if this video plays.
Mexicans are not interested in assimilating to whiteness. So a lot African immigrants, Caribbean immigrants, Asian immigrants, Latino, Hispanic immigrants, a lot of them want to assimilate and believe assimilation into the power structure of whiteness is the thing to do. Whereas for the most part, Black Americans have rejected it, which is part of the anti-culture that it produces a lot of times in contradistinction to what mainstream America wants to utilize as the standard. And the reason I bring that up is because white supremacy, European colonialism is all about preserving the idea that those who are white people or pale people from Europe is the standard. Anything that challenges that is out the window. So immigration has always been about policing Black and brown people, as they say.
All right. So, you know, and I think that pretty much accurately sums up our position on, you know, trying to assimilate with white people and trying to be white. We don't accept that in our community. Now, let's go ahead and I want to start kind of getting into the lesson a little deeper. I want to kind of help y'all understand. Now, again, I've already laid the background and I explained to you that there are, you know, I mean, you got this heavy African background, okay? But these are the perceptions of what Mexico is supposed to be. All right, these are the perceptions. You have, you know, whether we're talking about Jewish, Iberian, and remember Iberian refers to the Iberian Peninsula. It refers to the countries, Spain and Portugal. You got the Lebanese, you got the Mediterranean. And of course you have the West Asian backgrounds like the Basque or Armenian. And if it's not framed as European, it's framed as indigenous. But what consistently goes missing in that lineup is that African presence, okay? Now, I'm gonna go through the process of breaking down because we think everybody who comes from Mexico is indigenous or Mexican, right? That's what and this is catered to Black people, okay? So I want everybody who's watching this broadcast who's not a foundational Black American, right? It does. If you're a Mexican and you Black, if you're a Colombian and you're Black, if you're a Cuban and you're Black, this is not for you. We don't get taught any of this. So I'm doing this for my people, for my foundational Black American people. All they do is they go down there to Tulum, they drink the liquor, they hang out on the beach, and they come on back home. They don't know anything about your culture per se. And I'm not speaking across the board because I know there are exceptions, but most of your culture and history is written in Spanish, and the vast majority of Black people don't speak Spanish. The only thing we know Spanish is tacos and pizza. And spaghetti. That's the only Spanish we know. But and burrito. But when we talk about Jewish people and how they arrived in Mexico and other parts of Latin America, you got to go back to 1492. In 1492, Spain expelled the Jewish people who refused to convert to Christianity. Remember this, they got rid of the Moors, right? They got rid of the Moors and they wanted to get rid of the Jews. The Moors let the Jews live there in Spain. You know, they had this, you know, the society with all these people. But at some point, the Spanish said, we getting everybody out of here who's not Christian. So that's what happened in 1492. Does that name sound familiar? But anyway, many left immediately, and they moved to places like the Ottoman Empire, or they went to North Africa, where they could practice Judaism freely, practice their religion. Some converted publicly to Christianity, but they were secret Jewish people behind closed doors. And they called the converts were called convertos or convertos. So, and some of them secretly continued practicing their religion in their home, and they became known as crypto Jews. All right, and now this is where Mexico comes into the story. After Spain conquered the Americas, and when I say Americas, I'm talking about Mexico, South America, Central America, the Caribbean, etc. After Spain conquered and of course Florida, okay, because we know Florida was a territory of Spain, and so was most of what we call Louisiana and Alabama, but that's another story. But after they conquered the America, they call it New Spain, and that included Mexico, Central America, and Spain also controlled large parts of the Caribbean and South America. So the convertos, they saw the New World as a place for economic opportunity and to put themselves some distance between that Spanish Inquisition, those courts. They would ask some tough questions with some tough consequences. They won't deal with that. You understand? So they were like, we better get out of here. And so they came through during the 1500s and the 1600s, and many converted Jews and their descendants migrated. They went to Mexico, which was called New Spain. Somebody type New Spain in the chat room. They went to Peru, they went to Colombia, and they went to Brazil, which was under Portuguese control. Caribbean territories like Curacao, which later became one of the most important Sephardic Jewish centers in America. And in these colonies, many, they lived publicly as Catholics, but privately they maintained their Jewish traditions. And so the Inquisition operated in parts of America, including Mexico City and Lima. So secrecy was still necessary because they could still get towed up. Remember the Spanish Inquisition, they would get you. Okay, and I might need to do a broadcast about that, but you all don't seem like you're learning anything on this one, so this might be the last one I'm doing because we've been here almost an hour, and clearly nobody's learned anything, because if y'all learn something, I'm supposed to earn something, but since I haven't earned anything, then, I'm going to just go ahead and finish this broadcast, and I'll make sure the next time I talk about, we'll talk about what's going on YouTube. But anyway, for you all who are learning something, make sure you let me know you are learning something. And I didn't say that at the top. If you learn something, I should earn something. The Super Chat, the Cash App is open. But that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and continue, because, some people are just hard to teach. No matter how long you teach, they won't get it. And I hope y'all not like that. But anyway, later waves of Jewish immigration came through in the 1800s and the 1900s. And when the Jews from Eastern Europe, that was the Ottoman Empire, when they moved to Latin America, they were looking for economic opportunity. They were trying to escape persecution. And one of those Jewish people is Claudia Sheinbaum. She's the current president of Mexico, right? Interested? Does that sound like a normal Latin name? No, it doesn't. Sheinbaum. She's Jewish. The current president of Mexico is Jewish. So that's a good person. Now, as far as Iberian, okay, when I say Iberian, I'm talking about the Iberian Peninsula, the region in Europe that includes Spain and Portugal, I talked about a little earlier. In 1521, Spain conquered what is now Mexico. After that, Mexico became part of the Spanish Empire, and it was again referred to as New Spain. And so you had Spanish settlers. They were here for the silver, the mines, the farms, the churches, the government positions. And so that early concentration of power shaped the country. And it's social. Shout out to Urban Eagle. Thank you for being the first and only person to contribute to the Super Chat, because you are the one that learned something faster than everybody else. You're an A+ student, Mr. Urban Eagle. Thank you so much. And shout out to Mr. Ghosting 7217. I'm glad I was getting a little distraught. But nevertheless, so when we talk about Iberian people, you can talk about Christopher Columbus. You can talk about Penelope Cruz, the Spanish actress. Y'all know who Penelope Cruz is? So those are Iberian. Now, they live in Mexico, but they're of Iberian origin. They can trace their roots back to Spanish settlers in the colonial times. They were landowners, etc. Lebanese people, right? Lebanese. They migrated to Mexico. Would you think? People from the Middle East. So between the 1800s and the 1900s, these Lebanese people who were coming from the Ottoman Empire, right, after it fell, right, these Lebanese families, they were dealing with poverty, they were dealing with war and high taxes and political problems. And so they got to Mexico, and most of them, they started small businesses. They were merchants, they dealt with textiles, they dealt with clothes and goods. They went from town to town, and over time, these families built a lot of money, very successful, and they moved into larger industries, okay? One of the famous Lebanese people is Salma Hayek. Have y'all heard of Salma Hayek? What about Shakira? Did you all know that Shakira is a woman, a Mexican woman of Lebanese heritage? Did y'all know that? Even though she's in Colombia, she's still a woman of Mexican heritage. Remember, all of that was Spanish territory. Okay, so it's just like going from Texas to Louisiana. It's all America. It wasn't until much later on that they split this stuff up and they had the different states. So yeah, so she's of Lebanese family. Now, when we talk about Euro mestizo, right, we hear that term mestizo. It refers to a person who's of mixed European and indigenous ancestry who appears more European during than he does mestizo, I guess, or indigenous, right? And it was part of the caste system that ranked people by ancestry and skin tone. And so after Mexico gained independence in the 1800s, the country promoted the idea of mestiza, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, meaning racial mixing, okay? As the foundation of the national identity, Mexico presented itself as a blended nation, part Spanish, part indigenous. No African, just black just disappeared, right? But we just gonna say we're part Spanish and indigenous. We just gonna ignore that black grandma. Somebody type Abuela in the chat room. Abuela, Abuela, where are you? Right? We still don't know where Abuela is, but I'm gonna let you know. But even within that mixture, lighter skin often meant greater social mobility. People who look more European were more likely to access education, business opportunities, media. You heard that fella talk about this earlier. He talked about how the media always portrays these light, white-looking folk. Yeah, that's part of the thing, because see, this pattern is called colorism, and we have dealt with that here in the United States a lot, but it's not as bad as it was, hundreds of years ago, where lighter skin is treated more valuable within a society. And we got rid of that when we came up with Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. That was one of the greatest gifts that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam put forth. Instead of us idealizing white, we start referring to white as the devil. You see, that's what they did. They hit them right in the strong suit. Instead of having these angelic white people, said Malcolm and the other ministers said, no, we just gonna call them the devil, and we're gonna tell our people why they're the devil using history and Bible and all these verses. And that really turned, that was 100 years ago, and that helped us turn the corner and begin to embrace that. Now, as far as that term, when I say Euro mestizo, some famous Euro mestizos, Carnelo Alvarez, right? There's a singer named Thalia. There's a singer named Luis Miguel. But most of y'all know the boxer Carnelo Alvarez. So that's a good example. Now, as far as Euro castizo, okay, this is a modern, let me say it like this. Nobody's claiming that anymore. And the reason they're not claiming it, because it comes from the colonial caste label. It was used in the 1500s and the 1700s to classify people based on ancestry. There's no official record labeling any modern celebrities or politicians as castizo. And it would be kind of inappropriate. It would be in bad taste to do that. But basically in a modern society, the closest comparison would be public figures who are, perceived as fully or mostly European, right? They got the really light skin. They're going to be the Mexican elites. They're going to be the media personalities like on Univision, and the politicians where their family lines can trace directly to Spain or other European immigrants. But that perception is about how society views them, not an official caste system. And the key point is this: the castizo was never just about identity. It was about access. It was about who could own land and hold office and claim hire status in colonial rule. You see now why these people want to erase. You see why they want to erase their black abuela? Black abuela was getting in the way. Okay? Now, of course, we all hear about the Amerindian or Amerindians, and that's the indigenous people. That's a fancy way of saying indigenous people. Amerindians is basically American Indian, Amerindians. And these people of Mexico, they're the original inhabitants in the land before Spain arrived. Mexico is home to many indigenous nations, including the Naha, the Maya, the Zapotec, the Mextec. And during Spanish colonial rule, indigenous people were forced into labor systems. They lost land. They had to pay tribute. They faced cultural suppression. Shout out to Sleepy PYJ 2011. Thank you so much. And they were basically pushed into farming and mining and low wage money. You know, there was a guy who played, he played in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. They were upset because they had this indigenous man on this $1 billion movie, and he represented Mexico, and they were not happy about that. What was the guy what was the name of the guy that played Namor on Black Panther? That guy. He also played in the movie, the Netflix special with the drug lords. I think it was I forget what it's called, man. I forget. That's crazy. Shout out to 562 Canary. I forget what that's called, but yeah, they were upset about him. I forget. I wish I could. What was his name? Somebody find his name for me. I want to call his name out. He's the guy that played Namor, and he also played in Narcos, Mexico. He was the guy that was growing weed. Brown, dark brown, right? Another one is Eva Morales, okay? She's actually from Bolivia, and that's not Mexico, of course, but she would be another one who would be considered an Amerindian. And there's plenty other, you know, but these are the representatives. Again, what's missing, right? Because what is consistently left out of these racial breakdowns is the Africans and the African descendants. Okay, during Spanish rule in the 1500s through the 1700s, large numbers of black people were transported to Mexico and Peru, and Mexico received enslaved Africans through ports like Veracruz. They worked in the silver mines, the sugar plantations, the ranches, the urban construction. Where do you think those black cowboys came from? In Mexico. You see? They had black dudes out there doing that. They worked the silver mines, the sugar plantations. Shout out to Red Sigma. Urban construction, domestic labor. And in certain periods from the 16th to the 17th century, Mexico received numbers of enslaved comparable to the United States. They were sending them to Mexico. They were sending them to the United States. Okay, so black people went everywhere. Okay, throughout the Americas. So it did just stop. Remember, the borders that we have now that we call America didn't exist back then. Some of what you look at was Spain. Some of it was France. Some of it was just wide open, unclaimed territory. Okay. Now, again, there's a difference between perception and reality, and that's exactly what we're bringing to the forefront. Now, before we go any further, I want to explain something to you. That's right. His name is Tenoch Huerta. Okay. That's right. Thank you so much. It's what it is. 293. Thank you so much. You are right. I appreciate you. Are you watching? Now, you watching Narcos? Or are you watching which one of these shows you watching? You watching Narcos or you watching Wakanda Forever? Okay, because that's gonna say a lot about who you are, miss. How you know his name like that? I know Tenoch Huerta. What you watch? You watching Narcos? He was out there growing all that weed. You need to tell us. Don't be out there growing. Don't be messing with the funny cigarettes, little lady. Make your lips black. Make you forget things. But Wakanda Forever, he did a great job. I love that movie. I've watched that movie over and over again. I just love seeing all those black and brown people, all those black and indigenous people. It just moves me to see it. My wife and kids say, Dad, it's like your 7th time. Why? I like the soundtrack. I bought the soundtrack on Amazon. I be listening to my car. Yeah, listen to Rihanna. Yeah, I'm just chilling, man. I like that. I like the vibe. I love seeing black and brown people. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's just something that just it inspires me, even if it's on a screen. Okay. And again, that's why I'm very. Somebody says Satan cigarette. That's right. You leave them Satan cigarettes alone. But again, before we go any further, I need to explain to you all some history. Okay. Now this is probably it's a linguistic history. So it's important, the Spanish language, it comes from where it comes from, okay? Because language reflects history and history shapes culture. Let me say that again. And I told back when I was doing my passport days, bros, I said, bro, you need to learn the language of the place where you are, because when you understand the language are the keys to the culture. And if you understand the culture, then you can unlock the keys to the culture. They let you in. Once you start speaking that language fluently, you get in. You know, there was a time, you know, I was speaking Spanish pretty darn fluently because I was living in those people's countries for like 10 years straight. You see what I mean? I was eating the food. I was dressing like them. I was big, you know, a lot bigger than the typical Latino man. But the bottom line is I blended in, okay? And so I learned a lot. So again, remember when I tell you that Spanish language, the language reflects history and history shapes the culture. And the language is the keys to the culture. So you can't open up into a culture until you understand the language. But Spanish is called Castilian, okay? Castellano, okay? Spanish or Spain, okay? A Spaniard. And it's mostly a Romantic language. And that doesn't mean it's a language that's going to make you fall in love. It means it's from Rome. But it evolved from vulgar Latin. Somebody type vulgar Latin. Somebody type vulgar Latin, okay? And that arose after the Roman Empire conquered the Iberian Peninsula. In other words, you guys remember seeing that movie, Gladiator? Remember he was going back to to Spain, remember that? And he was going back to his wife was Spanish. Yeah, okay, so Rome conquered the Iberian Peninsula, right, with Spain and Portuguese. And that happened over 2,000 years ago. Now, I might have missed something. They called it vulgar Latin because vulgar Latin originally meant common or of the people, okay? Right, so if you're speaking vulgar, that means you're speaking like the people speak. You know, like y'all cuss when nobody's listening to you. You know that y'all vulgar, that means you're speaking common. Next time you see somebody cursing, they say, you're so vulgar. In other words, you're so common. You're so common. That's what you're telling people, okay? But it was, again, it's not meant to be, at that time, it wasn't meant to be crude or offensive the way we see it today, but the term comes from the Latin word vulgus, which means the common people or the crowd, okay? And so vulgar Latin simply means the everyday Latin spoken by ordinary people. That means soldiers, farmers, merchants, families, as opposed to classical Latin, okay, which is the formal literary language used by educated elites, scholars, poets, and government officials. It's no different than when you are chilling at your grandmother's house, surrounded by all your cousins. You're chopping up words, you're speaking Ebonics, you code switch, which is what we do. You're still speaking English, but you're not speaking proper English. Okay, not that any American ever actually speaks proper English, at least according to the British. But the bottom line is it's lax. It's a lax form of Latin. And so Latin became the foundation of Spanish grammar structure, okay, and vocabulary. But Spanish is not just Latin, okay? Because what happened? What happened in 711 AD, right? What happened in 711 AD? The Muslim forces from North Africa, they called them the Moors, they crossed the Iberia. It is really just a short distance between Africa and Spain. But they crossed into Iberia, the Iberian Peninsula, and they established rule over large parts of what is now Spain. And that Muslim presence lasted 800 years. Look, if somebody is up around you for 800 years, you're going to pick up some things from them, aren't you? All right. And so during that time, that region known as Al-Andalus became the center of science, mathematics, architecture, philosophy, agriculture, trade, and Arabic became the major language of the administration and the scholarship and the daily life. So it was the language of business, okay? It was the language of the educated. So because of that long period of coexistence, sometimes peaceful, sometimes not, all right? The Spanish absorbed thousands of Arabic words, and linguistics estimate that about 8% of the modern Spanish vocabulary has Arabic origins. That's about 4,000 Arabic derived words that we still use today, like aceite from azate, which is oil. Let me see, aceituna, which is olive, from azatuna, which is Arabic, azúcar, sugar, from suka, that's how you say sugar in Arabic, azúcar. What about alcohol, which is from alcohol, okay? Let me see, al mojado, pillow, al micala. You understand what I'm saying, family? Limon, which is lemon, and from lemon, you see? So, that's it. Oh, here's one, ajola, which is from inshallah, right? Hopefully, ajola, which is inshallah. We hear Muslims saying that inshallah, and that means hopefully, if God's will. I think that's what it translates to literally. But many Spanish words that begin with al, they come directly from the Arabic definite article, al. And Arabic influence, it entered Spanish not only through direct interaction with Arabic-speaking population, but also through other dialects, you see? So, this is what happened. So even after the Christian Reconquista ended the Muslim political control, and they got them up out of there in 1492, the language kept those Arabic elements in it. Okay, so it's embedded. It was too embedded to remove. It was just too much. But for 800 years, the Iberian Peninsula was culturally isolated. It was a place of religious diversity. Okay, but again, there was an intellectual exchange between the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews, and there was conflict, yes, but there was also interaction, intermarriage, trade, and shared knowledge. So you see how the culture was influenced? You see now, because I want you to save that, and we're gonna come back. Save that part, okay? Because I want you to understand what's the difference between these white people and those white people. Well, these white people aren't all the way white, okay? So let's contrast that with the Northern European Protestant powers like Denmark and Scotland and Ireland and England, okay? And how they came to North America, particularly England. They developed under different religious and social traditions, okay? They emphasized sharper racial and religious boundaries because they didn't have all those Moors and Arabs and black dudes up here. So I'm saying we just go straight white. We're gonna be white. White's all right. We don't need anybody else. We're just gonna be white, and that's why we have what we have now. You understand? So shout out to Hard Hidden History. So when the English established colonies in what became the United States, they built legal systems that strictly define racial categories and enforce anti-miscegenation laws. Anti-miscegenation means you can't date this one, you can't date that one, and if you do have a baby by them, they can't inherit. By contrast, when it was anything, anybody can get it down in Mexico. Anybody, what? You see you a fine, big booty brown girl walking, I'm on it. We gonna do the thing. Okay, she can be indigenous, she could be African, she could be mulatto, whatever she is, you got it. I'm gonna make it happen, you see? Because they already had those lackadaisical views about race because they just came from a racially mixed society. Why would they care? Okay? And so again, Spanish's colonial caste system in the Americas was still hierarchical and oppressive, especially towards Africans and indigenous people, but it formally recognized racial mixing in ways that the English colonial systems refused to do. Spanish categorized mixtures, mestizo, mulatto, castillo, while English colonies tended to just be binary. Either you're gonna be white or you're gonna be black. That's it. If you got a black mom and a white dad, you're black. Okay, you might be mixed, you might be a mulatto, but you're still black. Okay, down there you have rights. Okay, down there if your dad is white, you're free. You got rights. So when people talk about Spanish colonies developed differently than English colonies in North America, the answer is because of that Iberian history, that 800 years of mixture. You see what I'm saying? And cultural contact and blending, including a deep interaction with the Islamic world. Shout out to Eddie Washington. And so Spanish language itself carries a history, Latin structure, Arabic vocabulary, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim intellectual exchange. And that layered past shaped how Spain approached identity in the Americas. Even the caste system is created still placed on European ancestry at the top, okay? So this is why when you talk to a Dominican who they identify with their Spanish roots, they say, I'm not black. They do have black people who are Dominican. They will call them Negro, okay? But if they are not 100% looking like they black, they're not gonna sound black. They're gonna sound in Indio. I think the DR has like, is it somewhere between 12 and 20 racial categories? You could just look at their identification. It's like, you're Indian, you're this, you're that. So they are very precise with their color. They're very precise with it. They don't see it as an ethnic. They're all Dominican ethnically, but they see themselves as they have different categories, and that's why we have that's why there's no communication between Black Americans and those people who come from those other countries, because remember, they were under Spanish rule and Spanish occupation. We were under British rule and British occupation. The British had a fine line, black or white. These other people had a cascade. Okay, do you all understand that? Is that clear? Because I want you to be able to understand who you're talking to when you do have these conversations with people of the diaspora, black people, brown people, indigenous people. I want you to have a better understanding so you can communicate more effectively. Does that explain it to you guys better? You get Spanish, different attitudes, Northern Europeans, different attitudes from the Spanish, okay? Now, again, I want to kind of, okay, great. Somebody said very clear. All right, thank you for being Urban Eagle, one of my homeboys from way back. Good looking out. It's good to have my people who've been here for a minute, man. It brings me comfort. Okay, so now here I want to answer another question. I want you all to understand the difference between Latino and Hispanic, because we often use that interchangeable. We don't know the difference, right? Most black folk, like, they all look like Mexicans to me. I know, but that's, you can't say that. That's insensitive, okay? We don't be like them. All right, but let's talk about it, okay? And why these terms describe language and geography and not race, okay? I want to explain the difference, okay? We're going to talk about Latino and Hispanic for foundational Black American, my audience, because this is who I'm catering this to, okay? Not for everybody. Let me get low. Let me see. Whether you're Hispanic or Latino, it doesn't have anything to do with your race or ethnicity. You can be black, you can be white, indigenous, you can be Asian mixed or anything else and still be Hispanic or Latino. These terms describe language and geographic origin, not skin color and not race, okay? Let's start with the word Hispanic. The term Hispanic comes from the Latin Hispanicus, and that means from Hispania. Hispania was the name that the Romans gave to the Iberian Peninsula, okay? Remember I told you 2,000 years ago, Rome conquered the Iberian Peninsula, had them all around there talking that vulgar Latin, remember? Okay, so let's fast forward. They called it Hispania, okay? And the region in Europe that includes that's what includes Spain and Portugal. And over time, the meaning Hispanic shifted. Today, Hispanic, it generally refers to someone who comes from or whose ancestry comes from a Spanish-speaking country, okay? Not every country in South America is a Spanish-speaking country, okay? I want you to think about it. The key factor is Spanish language, not race. If you're from Mexico, Colombia, Spain, or any of the other Spanish-speaking nations, you're considered Hispanic. And that includes Black Hispanics, white Hispanics, indigenous Hispanics, and mixed race Hispanics. Now, let's look at the word Latino. Latino comes from the word Latinium or Latium, the region in central Italy where the city of Rome was founded. The people of that region spoke Latin. From Latin developed what we now call the Romance languages. Remember I talked about that? Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, Romanian. And in the 1800s, the term Latin America was popularized particularly by French intellectuals to describe regions in the Americas that were once colonized by countries speaking Latin-based languages. So when we say Latino, we're referring to someone from Latin America, meaning countries in the Americas that were colonized by Spain, Portugal, or France that speak Romance languages. Okay? All right? And so this is where the distinction becomes important. Hispanic refers to specifically to Spanish-speaking origin. Latino refers to geographic origin in Latin America. Some people are both. Some people are only one. For example, Spain is in Europe. Spaniards speak Spanish, so they are Hispanic. But they're not Latino because they are not from Latin America. On the other hand, Brazil is in Latin America and they speak Portuguese, which is a Latin-based language. Brazilians are Latino because of geography and language roots, but they're not Hispanic because Portuguese is not Spanish. Haiti, right, is another example. Haiti shares the island with Hispaniola with the Dominican Republic. And Haiti's official language is French. And many Haitians speak Haitian Creole, which is largely based on French. French is a Latin language, a Latin-based language that makes Haiti part of Latin America geographically and linguistically. Haitians are Latino. Okay? I don't care how many times y'all call them Black or African, whatever. They're still Latino. Okay? Haiti is part of Latin America geographically and linguistically. Haitians are Latino, okay? They're not Hispanic because they don't come from Spanish-speaking countries. It's also important to remember that Haiti was the first independent nation established in Latin America and the Caribbean following a successful slave revolt. And so again, Hispanic refers to Spanish-speaking origin. Latino refers to Latin American geographic origin. Neither term automatically tells you anything about a person's race. A Latino can be Black, white, indigenous, mixed, Asian. Hispanic can be Black, white, indigenous, mixed, Asian. These labels are about language and colonial history, not ethnicity or skin color. Understanding that distinction is important so that we can move forward and everybody can be on the same page. Now, the thing we need to do here, I need to make sure that, I need y'all to, y'all learning something? I need to know if you're learning something, okay? I've been talking for 2 hours and 23 minutes, and if you're not learning something, I can just go ahead and quit now, because if you haven't learned anything now, you're just not gonna learn anything, okay? Before I go through this next breakdown, I need to know that y'all are learning something. And the way I know you learn something is that I should earn something, okay? And I appreciate everybody who has learned something. There's been 14 people so far, but I need a few more of you people to let me know you earned something by contributing to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. We got 14 Super Chats. Y'all know what you got to do. Let me know you know that I know. I'm going to give y'all an opportunity to let me know that you appreciate what I'm doing. But I need y'all to go ahead and make that happen right now. Again, hit the number 1 button. Let me know that you appreciate what I'm doing, and also contribute to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal if you learn something. In the meantime, I'll be right back.
What's up? Welcome to the broadcast. This is Uncle D.
People wash their ass in the tub, Kamala Harris.
You would tune in to Uncle D. Black man talk, pull up, homie, take a seat. Don't be a shadow watcher every day. You learn something, then you earn something. Let them know and drop some money in the plate. It's getting cold, ladies, talking ratchet. There's a king here, grab your coat, zip your jacket. Keep quiet for a second, close your jaw. Turn it Spurling, this ain't Furling, know the law. Talking Constitution, pushing pins when he shootin', give him that. Masculinity, just for the record, sprinkle that. You can keep your cat, gotta cut it. Only cat he rubbing, gotta love it. I call it Holly Buddy. Gotta vote your interest, voting earns. Presidential, this is for the money that I earn. When you gon' learn, my people, that evil mixed with evil. No matter what you're doing, baby, this ain't equal. Sometimes when you're special, you get hated. The test is for the best, you're damn right, my people made it. Uncle D, Blizzard King, you've been served, gotta know this. 9 black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you've been served, get your notice. 9 black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you've been served, get your notice. 9 black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you've been served, get your notice. 9 black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now.
Hey man, I'll do what I do.
Somebody need to whip your ass.
Get up and whip him, Sweets.
Hey, don't be putting the money in my hand all rough.
Take your ass out here. You buy you a Floby and cut your own damn hair from now on.
What the hell? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Hold on a damn minute. All right, welcome back to the broadcast. I hope you guys appreciated that little break. I hope you guys are enjoying this broadcast. You guys hit the #1 button and let's go and get back to Let's get back to work. Let's get back to work. All right, so here's the thing. Let's start digging into the actual lesson. And I have a video I'd like for you all to check out with me.
Mayan and
Somebody type fair use. This is Professor Gates of Harvard. And he did a tour of Mexico, and I'm going to let some of it play, and then I'm going to fill in a little bit, of the gaps, because, of course, there's only so much he can do. You guys check this out.
Aztec ruins and Peru, Machu Picchu, the great Inca people.
Fair use.
5,000 varieties of potato. How many of us realize that far more slaves came to Mexico and Peru together than came to the United States in the entire history of the slave trade?
Did y'all know that? Did you know more black people went to Mexico and Peru? Keep in mind, I want you to understand the context. Those were territories of Spain, okay? So it makes sense, right? They weren't just they didn't have the borders and barriers, the artificial barriers that we have now, okay? So keep that in mind. So again, I know there's a lot of people, okay? I know we got a lot of pretendians out there who don't think that black people in America came from Africa. I know you all say you were Indian. Somebody type Cherokee in the chat room. I know you want to be a Cherokee, and then the other day when I told you the Cherokees were slave owners, now you're upset. Don't get upset with me. I'm just telling you the truth. If you want to be a pretendian, that's fine. Just don't watch my broadcast, because I'm not going to let you be a pretendian. Somebody type pretendian in the chat room. You're not going to be a pretendian on this broadcast. It's not going to happen. Okay, you can be mad, you can be upset. I don't care. I'm Uncle D. I don't care about your little funky feelings. You can be sad all you want to. But what you heard this professor say, this Harvard professor, not some internet dude that you all been listening to that makes you feel good, but a Harvard professor who's been scrutinized and trained and has his reputation online. He just told you that there were more Africans were brought to Peru and Mexico together than were sent to the United States. Because see, the truth is America only got like a little under 400,000 African slaves. The rest of the Americas got the rest. Okay, but let's go ahead and continue. Praise God. Don't run away yet.
I've come here to search for the lost history of black people in Mexico and Peru. The charming town of Tlacotalpan was founded by the Spanish in the 16th century, but it boomed in the 18th century when it became a major trading center for sugar, cotton, cattle, and horses, all commodities produced by slaves, Indians, and mestizos.
I mean, how can these people be Mexican? I mean, how can these people be racist? I mean, it just makes no sense.
Today, Tlacotalpan is known for its fandangos.
When I found out how racist Mexicans were culturally, I don't think, the only time I was more upset is when I found out the Samoans got a negative racial stereotype for black people. I didn't even know that, but anyway.
Music and dance that combine Spanish, Indigenous, and African traditions. Fandangos are a fitting metaphor for the African roots of Mexican culture.
Fandango. Those girls are great. Now, the boys dance or just girls?
Well, they always say that the first hour for, like, watch the girls. Check if you want to dance with one of them later.
Rafael Figueroa, an ethnomusicologist, grew up here. He's an expert on this music, which he's heard since childhood.
Fandango, it's a really mix of Hispanic and African mainly. Even though it's Hispanic instruments, but they are played in a really percussive way, and they are playing, against each other, the result of a big polyrhythm. Polyrhythm.
That's African.
Yes. I've seen fandangos ending around 6 or 7 a.m. next afternoon.
I love this town.
So you kind of get what's
all
big.
Of these people would be black.
Yeah. He basically just said if the one drop rule was in place here, all of these people would be black. Let me see if I can get that play out. All right.
Right. This is some good food.
So this is a lady finding out that her daddy was lying to her. She's black. This is where they brought the slaves in right here. Okay. This is Veracruz.
Professor Sagrario Cruz has invited me to lunch, promising me 2 significant clues to help me solve the mystery of Mexico's missing black population.
This is my family. Well, I show some pictures to show you. And this is a very old picture, and this is my grandpa with his sons.
The banditos.
Yes. And this is the wedding of my parents.
Oh, look how pretty your mom is.
But he's a dark man, and
She's light.
right.
So your family is part black?
It's part black, and it's something that was omitted until I
Fair use.
was 19 years old.
How did you? She didn't find out she was part black until 19. It just wasn't a conversation that took place in the household.
Find out that you were part black?
Because I traveled to Cuba. And when I arrived there, they started talking about the African heritage and the culture. I suddenly...
You hear what she's saying? They don't even talk about their African heritage. And this woman is a highly educated woman. They don't even talk about their African heritage in places like Mexico.
I realized my family was black. Because looked like my grandpa, looked like my father.
Yeah, no, they definitely look black.
And when I started tasting the food, I said, oh my God, it's the food my grandma prepares at home.
Grandma, that's your black grandma. See that? Black grandma. Somebody type black grandma in the chat room.
I recommend you to taste the mogo mogo.
That sounds African.
Yes, sounds African. And we have the same recipe in Puerto Rico. It's fufu.
In Ghana, fufu.
Right.
Fufu is like having a bowling ball in your belly. It
Yes,
is like,
yes. And in Cuba it's called mofongo. And here we have fried yuca.
I love fried yuca. It's like a big French fry. But
Right. This was originally prepared by slaves because they needed carbohydrate.
yeah, they had to work all day in the sun.
Right.
This is some good food.
Hit the #1 button as long as you. Oh, and you guys make sure you subscribe to the channel. I haven't talked. I'm gonna get y'all in a minute. Don't cheat me on my subscriptions. You hear me? All y'all. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Talking to you right there. You. Subscribe to this channel. Go ahead.
How did it make you feel suddenly to discover you're black?
Listen what she say.
It was like if you will discover that you are adopted.
When you came back and told your family,
she discovered she was a she. She didn't even know who her identity was. You understand what she just said? Finding out that I was black was like being adopted. That means her whole identity was shook. The brainwashing that these people received down there, had her whole identity shook. Okay? That's how extreme it is. All right?
did they tell you you went loco up there, drinking too much rum?
I asked my grandpa, why you never told me we are black? And he held my hand and told me, sweetie, we are not black, we are morenos.
Oh, moreno.
We are not black, we are morenos. Now you all are starting to see what happened to the black abuela. Okay? She was erased. Okay? That's what happened. Starting to see. Let's keep going.
Of course, he was aware that he was a black man, but he rejected that identity.
That's interesting.
And I think this happens in most families, that you hide
It happens
the
in most
black
families.
grandma in the closet.
The black grandma in the closet.
Yeah.
You hear that?
In America, tradition.
You hide the black grandma in the family. So these people have no idea. These Mexicans up here who come up here with these racist notions about black people, they have no idea that they have African heritage in them. I mean, this is the type of ignorance that, I mean, it's crazy. But let's keep going.
Similarly, you had one drop of black blood, you were black.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. One drop of black blood, you're black. But again, we'll let a little bit more play and we'll keep it pushing.
Almost 500 years separate the onset of the slave trade and rumors of black grandmothers in a Mexican family's closet today. What happened in between? From the market in Veracruz, African slaves were taken to work in mines, sugarcane fields, and wealthy homes. But they didn't accept their fates passively.
Nope.
By the early 17th century, at least 10% had run away.
You see that? We were running away. So basically, you had 50,000 runaways in Mexico.
Independent settlements called palenques. The most famous runaway and rebel leader was a man named Yanga, the founder of this town, which is located a few hours inland from Veracruz. Carmen, who is Yanga?
A hero more than anything.
The hero.
A black slave. Supposedly, he was a slave of the Spanish who broke the chains.
He freed himself from oppression that the Spanish had over him. And he also liberated the slaves.
What my girlfriend said.
That's why they call Yanga the first free town in the Americas.
Oh man, give me 5, Gustavo. You're the man. You're a genius. You could be a professor.
So before Haiti, before it was the first free town in America, and there's a black king from Brazil that freed himself. I might do a broadcast on that, okay? But let's keep pushing.
In 1570, 50 years before the Mayflower landed at Plymouth Rock, Gaspar Yanga and several other men and women not only ran away from slavery, but spent 30 years hiding out in the mountains around Veracruz.
He made the Spanish government quit.
Attacking the Spanish in guerrilla raids and defending their community. The Spanish never could subdue them. Finally, in 1609, the Spanish admitted defeat and offered Yanga his own independent town in exchange for peace.
He made the empire quit.
Yanga's settlement became what...
See, you get rewarded when you keep fighting, family. Keep that in mind.
Some scholars believe to be the very first town founded by free black people in all of the Americas.
Praise God.
Are most of the people around?
And we would never learn about this. So again, black Africans all through the Americas, we never accepted slavery laying down. None of us accepted it. We always fought, okay? So we were not a docile people. No human being is ever going to accept slavery. That's not in the human being spirit to do that, especially us. All right, let's keep listening.
You're black?
No. Well, most people aren't completely black, but we are morenos.
Cultures, they combine together and form others.
So what are you? What are you?
Mestizos. Mestizos because we're light brown.
Are you moreno? Are you moreno or no?
See, they rather assume that the brown comes from indigenous as opposed to African. You understand? And this is how they're able to erase it. Keep listening.
Look.
What are you, Indian?
I am black.
You're negra?
I'm black.
You're very beautiful, negra.
La negra. Look at that. That's a bold statement for that little girl to say she's black in a society with such a caste system. Okay? I want you to keep in mind. Let's keep pushing.
Cortez, the famous Spanish conquistador, arrived in Veracruz in 1519.
So I'm gonna push past this part a little bit. I want y'all to check this out. This is their racial caste system. They literally have art dedicated. If you ever go to Mexico City, you can check this out. Listen to this.
The Catholic Church allowed marriage between all groups. The law granted freedom to the children of black slaves and indigenous women. White men.
See? The law, so they didn't have the laws, the anti-miscegenation laws that we have here in the United States. Different culture, different European colonizer.
Increasingly impregnated black women.
They always begin with Spanish and Indian.
White men increasingly impregnated black women. They were digging for that black gold. That's basically what he said.
That it makes mestizo. Then mestizo and Spanish castiza.
Castiza.
The third one is castiza and Spanish, makes Spanish.
Maria Elisa Velasquez is a professor of history.
So in other words, castiza and Spanish make Spanish. So if you have an indigenous grandma, or I'm sorry, if you have an indigenous parent and you have a Spanish parent, and you go and get with a Spanish mate and have a child, that child is considered Spanish, at least as far as they're concerned. So you see what I mean? They can work their way back to whiteness. Over here, you can never be white again.
In anthropology, these 18th century Casta paintings were painted to show Europeans the diversity of the people here. These 16 images are a sort of an anthropological cookbook, showing the results of mixing the genes of black people, brown people, and white people.
What about me? Which one in the 16?
You will be here, look.
Let me see.
This one, a mulatto. The little kid, that's the mulatto.
The beautiful brown baby like me.
Yes, of course.
What would Barack Obama be?
Also a mulatto.
Okay, Beyonce, she would be mulata?
Yes.
What would Tiger Woods be?
A lobo with African descent blood and also indigenous blood.
These people were crazy.
Yes, they need pseudo-scientific reasons to explain why some cultures will be inferior and you have to make them slaves.
And they found it.
They found it.
16 shades of blackness.
Yes.
But why were your white people more willing to sleep with black people than my white people?
Quite well, because the
Now, I think I have a better explanation than they do, but I'm going to let them go ahead and answer the question.
culture of the Spanish church allow the marriage between all the ethnic groups. And also the Spanish people have an heritage more open to the mixture because of the Arabic presence in Spain.
The Moors were in Spain for 800 years or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Now, I will say this. Spain unified on Catholicism. The United States unified on whiteness, okay? So what I'm saying is, in order to become, to ascend through the hierarchy under the Spanish rule, under Isabella's rule, all they required is that you be a Catholic. You got to understand, they went through 800 years of occupation by Islamic Moors, and you know, they didn't really care what color you were as long as you weren't a Muslim. All right. So as long as you said, I'm a Catholic, you're good with us. So they unified under Catholicism. That's why Florida became a bastion for runaway slaves. Remember, a lot of the slaves that were taken from Africa came from the Congo. And the Congo, you had the Portuguese Congo. Many of the upper echelon rulers adopted Portuguese names. They were educated, and their children were educated in Portuguese institutions in Portugal, in the Iberian Peninsula. Keep in mind, the Moors had taken over. They were there for 800 years. What do you think was happening? Okay? And so, you know, what you need to understand is that when they got here, many of them spoke Portuguese. Many of them were fluent in Portuguese. The first black man to own a slave in the United States, Antonio, he changed his name to Anthony Johnson. I did a broadcast on him. I know you all hate me for telling you these truths, but he was from the Congo and he spoke Portuguese. So he was basically a Europeanized indentured servant. He filed the case. When it was time for him, he got another black man, had him do an indentured servant. He said, I lost the paperwork, you still my indentured servant. And so he sued to keep him there. And the large reason why he did not want to give him his papers is because the agreement was you have to give them a certain amount of land along with livestock. And so because of that, instead of, he said, no, he didn't finish. And so he was able to keep him enslaved. I did a broadcast on that, but that was part of, once you finish your indentured servitude, you were entitled to land and livestock and supplies from your previous owner, I guess we would say. And so Anthony Johnson refused to do that. Now he changed his name from Antonio to Anthony Johnson, but the fact that his name was Antonio lets you know, and he was from Portugal, or the Congo, I should say, and they spoke Portuguese. It lets you know a lot. Okay, so look, history's not just black and white; it's gray areas, and this is one of those gray areas. But look, we're gonna go ahead and I want to keep pushing past this because I want to really go ahead and get deep into the lesson. When we think about Mexico. Right? When we think about Mexico, or when Americans think about slavery in the Americas, we think about the United States, we think about plantations, we think about the South. What many of us don't realize is that the enslaved Africans were also brought in huge numbers to Mexico, Peru under Spanish rule. And these enslaved people were taken from Africa, mainly the West Coast, Nigeria, Togo, Benin. They were taken from Central Africa, which would be Congo. They were captured, they were sold, they were forced on the ships in the transatlantic slave trade. From there, they were transported across the Atlantic Ocean to Spanish colonies in the Americas. And so after Spain conquered the Aztec Empire in 1521, and they say conquered, really the people got sick from disease and they just went and slaughtered the last 10% of the people who were there. It didn't take much. All right. I mean, think about it. It was 1492. Columbus brought smallpox with him. He brought the flu. And 30 years later, 90% of the population of the Aztec Empire disappeared because of disease. Same thing with the Incas. These people didn't come over here with overwhelming force. They brought disease because they grew up Europe had all these domesticated animals, and they had developed antibodies to these animals and the viruses that they bring, but the other people didn't have those antiviruses, and they brought them with them. But nevertheless, these regions made Spain rich. They had silver mines in places like Zacatecas in Mexico, in Potosi, in South America. It helped fund Spain's power in Europe. And to keep the system running, Spain needed workers, okay? And at first, Spain forced the indigenous people to work under systems called encomiendas and repartimientos. But many of the indigenous people died from disease and war and just harsh labor. They weren't built for it. And so as the population dropped, the Spanish turned more to enslaved Africans. And historians estimate that between 1500 and 1800, 200,000 to 200 to 250,000 enslaved black people were brought to Mexico, and which they called New Spain. And Peru received tens of thousands, especially during the 1500s and the 1600s. By comparison, they brought 388,000 enslaved Africans to the United States. And we increased our numbers here through breeding farms, okay, over a 56-year time period from 1808. I think there were about 400,000 black slaves in what we call the territories of the continental United States. And by the time we got to the eve of the Civil War in 1860, in that last census of 1861, there were 4 million, and that's from breeding farms, okay? So no, we didn't bring 4 million Africans to the United States. We brought about 400,000, and the rest were bred. All right, black women were here in the United States, and I'm skipping back and forth, but I just want you all to get everything. I want you to have the context. Here in the United States, black women were incentivized to give birth to children. If a woman gave birth to 6, 7, 8 kids, you know, she was a gem. You see, she got rewards. And so they incentivized black women to be breeding vessels, and they would take the children. It didn't matter if it was a biracial child, it could be whoever. It didn't necessarily have to be a black man who fathered the child. That's why we have so many foundational black Americans who are of mixed heritage. I did a broadcast last week where I spoke that if you are an FBA, if you go back 6 generations, you will have a white grandfather. Okay, you will absolutely have a white grandfather. Okay, so and somebody's saying we boogie to all cap. What are you talking about? Would you like to come in here and explain to me? I mean, see, here's the thing. It's only so much you can fight. You can lie to yourself if you want to. You think this is all cap? You think, how do you think all these black people got here? How do you think all this culture? How do you think they eat the same things in West Africa that they eat in Mexico and Colombia? I mean, it's one thing for you to be delusional here in the United States and pretend like you are Indian. It's another thing for you to impose your uneducated, unresearched belief on Brazil and Colombia and Mexico and all these other places. Nobody else cares what you think, okay? If you go to those places and tell them that, oh yeah, black people just magically appeared out of nowhere, then they're gonna think you're an idiot. Now you can continue believing that if you want to. You know, you all, because we got people in here, we got a lot of pretendians in here, and this messes up your theories. I get what you say. This messes up your little comfortable theory. We've been here, okay? I know it makes you feel bad to know that our ancestors were enslaved, or at least some of them were. All right, it makes you feel bad, but it's the truth. Why not just embrace it? Let's be adults. Let's stop running away from it. Let's stop lying to ourselves. I mean, you have bone structure, you have DNA evidence, you have linguistic evidence, you have cultural remnants, especially in those other countries. Why are we lying to ourselves? You know, but I don't want to get off into that. But anyway, and they got bodies. They got statues of the black people that they brought. Are you kidding me? But anyway, Brazil received the largest number of African slaves. Mexico was one of the main destinations in the Spanish Americas doing. And enslaved Africans in Mexico and Peru, they dealt with sugar plantations. They worked in silver mines. They worked cattle ranches. They built the cities. All right, the ports of Veracruz. Somebody said it's pretty disrespectful for you for that your opinion is more important than people's. It's not my opinion. This is not my opinion. I'm giving you history books straight out. I'm giving you straight. I'm just putting it right here for you to eat it. It's not disrespect if it's the truth. And if you count the truth as disrespect, then that's just your problem. If somebody tells you, hey, if you keep walking off this cliff, you're gonna fall and die, and you count that as disrespect, well, you just, that's maybe your problem. You gotta just deal with that. We don't do delusion on this page. I am a 25-year trial lawyer. I only deal with facts and historical data. I'm not gonna play this delusion games. I'm not here to make you feel better. And I know a lot of people don't like what I'm saying because, your grandma told you was a Cherokee, and I came up here and told you, yeah, the Cherokee were brutal slave owners. Look up Rich Jovan. Look how brutal he was to his slave. The man owned over 400 slaves. 10% of the Cherokee population owns black slaves. 3% of the white population in America owns slaves. So that means that 3 times as many Cherokee families held slaves as white people, and we hold them as the culprit. The Native Americans were brutal slave owners. They were harsh to you. They did everything to you the white man did, and they did it trying to prove a point. And you still want to romanticize them. I'm not going to let you do it on this page. Even if you don't like it, I'm okay with that. You can feel how you want to feel. You are still going to get this work. Let me say that again. I'm not here for a good time, okay? I'm here to speak the truth. And whether you like the truth or not, you're going to hear it. Because on this page, I'm not going to say things to you. If I was saying, oh yeah, we all in there, it'd be 10,000 people in here right now. Because that's somebody that tells you what you want to hear. I'm not the type of man that's going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to let you deal with it. And, you know, if you feel like it's disrespectful because I just told you your grandma didn't know what she was talking about, oh, well, I'll tell your grandma to her face she didn't know what she was talking about. And that's not disrespectful because that's the truth, because it's more important for me to be right with the Most High and to speak the truth to people than to sit up here and lie to you and make you feel good. You understand me? And somebody said lawyers are liars. No, they're not. Not this one. And I'm not coming at you as a lawyer. You see, I'm coming at you as I'm talking to my people. And if you don't like it, then that's fine. You don't have to like it. You can look this up. You can live in that bubble all you want to, sir. Respectfully. You can live as long you want. Stay there all you want to. We not going to stay there. We going to move on. Anyway, I done gave enough time to that. Now, again, over time, many of these Afro-descendant folk mixed with the indigenous and the European populations, okay? And the African ancestry was renamed. They call it mulatto. They call it moreno. And later national identity stories focus mostly on Spanish and indigenous mixing, and they downplayed the African. So when people think about Mexico and Peru today, they rarely think about slavery, but slavery was there. It helped build the economy, it shaped race, class system, and the numbers may not always be taught, but they're real. And if you're going to talk honestly about race identity in Latin America, we can't leave Africa out of the story, period. Now, I want to tell you guys about somebody named Hernan Cortez. Have you ever heard of Hernan Cortez? Huh? Hernan Cortez, he was a conquistador. He arrived on the coast of Mexico in what is called Veracruz. From there, he marched inland towards the Aztecs in Tectocan. All right, at the time, it was one of the largest, most advanced cities in the world. It was built on a lake with canals. I mean, golly, it was immaculate. They had causeways. They had a complex irrigation system. And Cortez and his men, they first saw the city, they were amazed. They were like, this is amazing. This is better than anything we've seen in Europe. We over here living in a pigsty, okay? Thank God the Moors came and cleaned it up, right? But it was organized, it was wealthy, okay? But they were especially interested in the gold. And among the men traveling with them was a free black man, and his name was Juan Garrido. Okay, Garrido was originally from West Africa. Remember, I just told you, Spain had 800 years of Africans and Moors in Spain. So it was nothing to have black people come along with the Spanish. All right. And Garrido was, like I said, he was from West Africa. He had been taken to Europe earlier in life. He converted to Christianity. And eventually he joined the Spanish expeditions to the Americas. He fought alongside the Spanish. So you got black Africans fighting alongside the Spanish. Again, you know, we were right there. So when you start talking about conquistadors and colonizers, you know, black folk, you got to realize we've been right there with them. Everybody participated in it. I need y'all to understand that, okay? So we always point at these white people, but we were right there with them, especially the Spanish. We were right there. Pedro Alonso Nina was on the ships with Columbus, and he was a black man from West Africa. We were always there. I need y'all to understand that black people have been We've been knee deep in the slave trade. We've been knee deep in conquest and conquer from day one. We've been buddy with the Europeans, and we need to just accept that. Okay, we do not have clean hands either. Now some of us got caught and sold, but some of us were caught and sold by our own relatives. Even though those Africans deny us, we all participated in it. Let's not run away from that. Can we be honest with each other? Huh? Can we be honest with each other? Huh? All right? Okay. Now, again, Cortez, and I'm talking about Juan Garrido, the black man from West Africa. He converted to Christianity. Well, anyway, he, along with Cortez, they laid siege to this Teclocan, and after months of fighting, the city fell. And in 1521, the conquest, it was violent and it was devastating, and much of the city was destroyed. They destroyed all those beautiful things. They went there and saw all that beautiful stuff, those causeways and they destroyed it. You see what I'm saying? And so now today, Mexico sits on top of the ruins of that country with more than 21 million people. That town in Mexico City has like 21 million. It's one of the largest cities in the Western Hemisphere. But right beneath the streets is that Aztec foundation, those colonial structures, those modern buildings. And the thing is, if you want to understand race and identity and how it developed in Mexico, you have to go there. All right, and you have to understand it. Now, the conquest brought together Europeans, indigenous people, Africans, and from that collision came the social order. All right. Now I showed you those pictures. Now another thing, the port of Veracruz. The port of Veracruz. All right. This was a very important port. All right. Let me see if I can, so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here. The port of Veracruz. Let me see if I can find it on the map for you guys and point it out. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna let this play. Not play. I'm not gonna let it play. I'm gonna bring this up. I want you to kind of get the proximity of what we're talking about here. All right, y'all still with me? Let me know if you're with me. I hope I'm not boring you. I was like, man, they don't want to talk about this, but I'm like, it's important. It's Black history. You know what I mean? It truly is. So this is the port of Veracruz. Okay. All right. Now remember, it took about 6 weeks to get to the Americas. And this is the west coast of Africa here. This is, it took about 6 weeks to get here. Most ships didn't sail directly there, but it took about 2 months to get here to the port of Veracruz. Now I'm going to zoom in. Okay. Now here's the other thing you need to understand. When you drop down here, the trade winds would take you right across. If you tried to sail up here in the way, it was very difficult. That's why people didn't typically go straight to the Americas. They typically went along the trade winds and ended up in the Caribbean somewhere. This is where Christopher Columbus got lost, right in here in the DR. Okay. But again, this is the port of Veracruz. Right there is the Yucatan Peninsula. This is where they brought the African slaves. This is the, here in the, what do they call it now? The Gulf of America. The Gulf. Oh, Trump is something else, right? The Gulf of America. He just changed the names, but I understand why he did it. He did it for the purpose because Joe Biden outlawed drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. So what he did was he just changed the name to the Gulf of America. And so you can drill in the Gulf of America. You just can't drill in the, look, it's called the Gulf of America. You could drill in the Gulf of America. You can't drill in the Gulf of Mexico. If you drill in the Gulf of Mexico, you can get penalized and your company might go to jail. But as soon as he changed the name to the Gulf of Mexico, it made things available. But you got a natural bay here. So this is the port of Veracruz. Let me see if I can get a better, let's see here. This is what it looks like. You see, it's pretty, this is where our African ancestors were brought. Mexico. I mean, straight into Mexico. But again, so the port of Veracruz, this port was the main entry point for slavery in Spanish America, starting in 1535. And nearly everything arriving in Mexico, whether we're talking about enslaved black Africans, they were all unloaded right there at Veracruz. It was known as the Key of New Spain, okay? And the main fort that guarded that harbor was called San Juan Uña, okay? I'm butchering the name, Ulua, okay? And here's the thing, historians and archaeologists, they've studied the area better to try to understand how the enslaved Africans arrived in Mexico. And the journey from Africa to Veracruz, it usually took 2 months. The conditions on the ship were terrible. The air was hot, it was crowded, it was unhealthy. You know, they stacked bodies on top of each other oftentimes. And some of the records showed that up to 20% of the people that died in the Middle Passage. And so in the 16th and 17th centuries, Mexico was one of the main destinations of enslaved Africans in the Spanish Empire. And during certain periods, a large portion of Africans brought to the Americans were under Spanish rule. They had to pass through Veracruz. And so from 1553, it got to the point that the viceroy, basically the governor, his name was Luis de Velasco. He wrote to King Charles, the first of Spain. He said, look, man, it's too many of them out here. I'm scared. They got a lot of them out here. Okay, we got a lot of these black Africans here in Spain, and they are not happy. And so he was afraid, just like the white Europeans in the Caribbean and in the South were afraid. They were afraid of uprisings. Okay, they were afraid. You hear me? And he had good reason to be afraid, because there were slave revolts in Mexico during the colonial period, including a rebellion of a person named Gaspar Yanga. Okay, Gaspar Yanga was a black man from Africa. And so by the 1650s, the population of blacks and mulattoes, right, those are mixed people of African and European descent in what was called New Spain, was close to the number of white settlers. And so this showed how significant the African presence was. Can you see how many black people they were? I mean, think about it. You had as many black Africans and mixed people, mulattoes, as you did white folk. And where did they go? Okay, what happened to them? Okay, where did they go? Again, somebody type black grandma in the chat room. What happened to the black grandma? What happened to her? Okay, and again, this is Gaspar Yanga right here. Clearly an African man. And this is right there in Mexico. Okay, it's right here in Mexico. Let me see if I can pull this up. This is a statue of Gaspar Yanga. And y'all see it? Clearly, look at look at the braids, look at the nose, the thickness of the lips, the build of the body. That is a black man. And so the reason that he is important, okay, the reason that Gaspar Yanga is important, and I'm gonna spell it for you, GasparYanga, is because he started an uprising, in the early 1600s. It was a rebellion, a full-out rebellion. And so by the 1650s, as I said, the numbers were like what and what. And Veracruz is not just a port, it was a doorway through which thousands of enslaved Africans entered Mexico. And the history tells a story that's overlooked, but essential to understand Mexico's past. Most Mexicans don't know this. They don't know this history. They don't teach them this. They're telling them to get white as fast as you can. But if you visit the port of Veracruz, you can still see those very large rings on the stone walls, big heavy rings, and they use those to tie the ships in place. See, they did that early in the colonial period. The port didn't have modern docks or piers. So they basically would just lash the ships onto the walls like that and unload the cargo. And so for enslaved Africans, this was the first sight of Mexico after surviving the Middle Passage across the Atlantic Ocean. The journey from West to Central Africa could take 2 months. People were packed tightly below the deck with little air, little food, no sanitation. And of course, 20% of the people die. And when ships arrived, the Africans, enslaved Africans, they were treated like property, not like human beings. They were inspected like merchandise. Buyers and officials checked their teeth, their muscles, their skin, their overall health. They looked for signs of illness and injury. Healthy young men were sold for heavy labor in the mines and plantations. They were digging silver. We were picking cotton. They were digging silver. Women and children were also sold. They were used as domestics, inspired Spanish households, and the price of enslaved persons depending on their age, their health, and depending on their physical condition. In the 1500s and the 1600s, a slave could go for 150 to 400 pesos. Now, that's not a lot of money right now. That won't even get you a taco down there now, okay? But in the 1600s, that would have been equal to $10,000 US, okay? Just to put it in perspective, 400 pesos could have bought you a small house back then, and that was saying something. That's how much each slave went for. So they were valuable property. And enslaved people were considered expensive investments. They were used as tool and labor. And after being sold, African slaves faced a completely new world. They didn't speak the language. They didn't know the customs. They were separated from their family members. And many of them were sent straight to the sugarcane plantations and the cattle ranches and the silver mines and to do urban construction. You see? And others were forced to domestic work. And see, this was the first experience in the new land. Not as immigrants, not as citizens, but as property. And the port of Veracruz was not just a place of trade for thousands of Africans. It was a doorway into a lifetime of forced labor and separation and survival. Now, here's the thing. After the indigenous population began to decline from disease and war, the Spanish turned more to heavy. They started bringing more Africans over. They forced them to construct those same churches and cathedrals and the forts and the warehouses and the homes. I mean, we always talk about, Africans built the black enslaved people built the United States. We built Mexico too. Hell, we built Brazil too. We built the whole Western Hemisphere. That's what you need to, don't just limit it to the United States. We built everything over here. This was a wide open wilderness. Okay? I mean, in places like Veracruz, the buildings were made from coral stone. You know where you get coral from? Coral did not appear on land. Enslaved Africans, black people, had to jump down into the water in the ocean. They were forced to dive into the ocean and get the coral and bring it back up. That was dangerous work. The water was rough, the tools were primitive, the labor was exhausting. Can you imagine jumping down there, holding your breath, coming back up? Many of them died in the process. Think about that. Most of y'all scared to get into the shallow end of the pool. These brothers had to jump into the ocean, get down there with some tools, break the coral up, and bring it back to the top, and keep and rinse, repeat. And so when you look at those walls, you're looking at more than architecture. You're looking at the labor taken by force. You're looking at lives that were never fully recorded. You're looking at people whose names were erased from history. And this is what I mean when I say death and invisibility. Death is obvious. And physical suffering, the body's buried without recognition, but invisibility is deeper. It's the absence of the story in the textbook. It's the lack of acknowledgement in the national identity. It's the silence around how much African labor shaped the whole new world. And so the fingerprint of black history in Mexico is right there in stone. It's those coral walls. It's the foundation of the buildings. It's the music. It's the culture. It's the bloodlines that follow. But for generations, that fingerprint was ignored. You understand? Death built it. Invisibility covered it. And now I'm going to uncover it. Because it makes no sense for these Mexicans to be as racist as they are, and you have more black and indigenous, more African DNA than most of these folk who come here in the United States. That's what I need you all to. You think you brown because you're indigenous? They wiped the indigenous out. Did you not hear what I said earlier? When I said by 15, 30, 90% of the indigenous people were gone, where do you think you got your color from? That's what I need y'all to understand. Where do you think your color, if the indigenous people were gone, 90% of them were wiped out because of diseases. Yeah, there's some there. Where do you think you got your melanin from? You didn't get it from the white folks. You got it from those African slaves. Now, again, we talked about, what was going on in these plantations. But some other stuff, as I said, sugar wasn't the only product. Okay, cotton was in it, ranching. They had local needs, they had industries, they forced labor. But here's the other thing. These places were also known for the culture. Okay, and there's a city called it's called Tlactolpan. It's famous for its dance called fandangos, especially a style of music called Son Jarocho. Son Jarocho, it developed in Veracruz, right there where all those black people were. Right there where all those Africans were. We gonna sing and we gonna dance wherever we are. We are happy people. You understand? It combines three influences: Spanish musical traditions, including the string instruments, like the jarana and the harp, the indigenous rhythms and performance styles, and the African musical influence, especially in the rhythm and the percussions. And even though many of the instruments look Spanish, the way they're played reflects African influence. The music often uses strong, repeating rhythms. Dancers perform the zapatilla or zapateado, which is a rhythmic footwork that strikes the wooden platform, and it creates percussion, and the music's it plays. It's a call and response style, the same thing we do in the black church up here. And the rhythm has layers on top of each other. And this creates what musicians call a polyrhythm. Everything. You see what I'm saying? Meaning that what that means is multiple rhythms happening at the same time. This is why it's so hard for you to dance to salsa music, because it got so many different rhythms. It's polyrhythmic. It has so many different instruments playing at the same time. So many, the drums, the guitar, it's just too much. You got to try to find a beat. You got to pick a struggle. You out there trying to dance, you got to find one and stick to it. But all that is connected to West and Central African music tradition. They do the same thing over there. And one of the most famous songs that we've ever heard, you ever heard of a song called La Bamba? Ah la 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 bamba, ah la 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 bamba. You heard that before? It's by Richie Valens. He played it in 1958. But the song itself dates back to 1683. It was first sung by Angolans and Congolese slaves who sung the song in Veracruz. And the structure of the song reflects African and Spanish blend, like the fancy footwork called the zapato or la bamba. Is another example of Mexican culture's complex African origins, not blended into a rich brown ethnic mix. You understand? That's what is going on, okay? Now, the crazy part is as recently as 1998, they said Taclopan was named as one of the world's heritage sites because it preserved the colonial architecture and the colonial importance. But behind the colorful buildings and the music is a deeper history, one built on African labor, okay? Now, again, they're quick to tell you about the indigenous and the Spanish, but they never tell you about the African. Now, I want to kind of start wrapping this thing up a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the runaways, they call them the palinkas, the resistance, because, again, we were fighting people. We are not out here trying to be slaves forever, okay? We're not out here trying to be slaves, all right? But I need you all to do me a favor, because I'm looking at my subscriber count and I don't see what I need. I need y'all to make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Let me see what my subscriptions look like. We ain't taking a break, but you all need to go ahead and, are you learning something? If you hadn't learned anything, you just hard to teach. But if you learn something, I should earn something. But in the meantime, I need y'all to make sure, apparently YouTube took 20 of my subscribers away for whatever reasons. I need you all to make sure you are still subscribed to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel right now. Take the time to subscribe to the channel. I'm checking to see what my subscriptions look like right now. I need you all to take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel. You'll never get another person as bold as me. I need, I need approximately 18 people to subscribe to the channel so I can get to 92,600. I need 18 people to subscribe to the channel so I can get to 92,600. Okay, so take the time and hit your little button and subscribe to the channel right now. I know you hear me. I know you hear me. I know. I'm looking at you. You right there. You with your phone like this on the side of your face. I'm looking you in the pickup, you in the truck with your phone down there listening to me in your truck. You riding across the country. Yeah, you. I need you to subscribe to the channel right now. Don't play. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. You sitting in there ignoring your girlfriend, listening to me. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead. Everybody who have something else to do and you sat up here and decide to listen to me with your earphones on, subscribe to the channel right now. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Yes, you. Is he talking to me? I'm talking to you. You with the shirt on. I'm talking to you right now. And I'm talking to you too, lady. I'm talking to you with the bonnet on your head. All the women with bonnets on your head. Every woman with a bonnet on her head. I need you to subscribe to the channel right now. All right, fellas. All the fellas with crusty feet. I need you to subscribe to the channel right now. I need my crusty feet crew. All the brothers that have not put lotion on their feet and they got ashy ankles. I need you to subscribe to the channel. All the white supremacists who are waiting around for me to to get the black committee to issue an official apology. I need y'all to hit the subscribe button now. Go ahead and do it. All the angry Muslims, all the angry black Muslims, I need you to come in here. I need you to subscribe. You need to hear this. You need to come on up in and hear this. I need 6 more people to subscribe to the channel right now. All you angry, come on. Come on now. Don't run from it. Don't just be happy it's not your day. Just be happy it's not your day. I'll be on them. When people die, I give them their day. Haitians, they caught hands last week. The poor Haitians, they was like, what are you doing to me? We are doing. Yeah, I caught hands. It's not your day today, baby. Subscribe to the channel today. Go ahead. We need 5 more people to subscribe to the channel, and I'll get back to work. I need 5 people. Out of 600-700 of y'all, I need 5 folk. You send this to a friend. Send this to your Muslim friend. He about to do his hadith. He over there, talking about don't eat pork. I send him this. Next time you say, that's why I've been eating them pork rinds in front of you right now. I didn't know. Yeah. I need 5 people. All I need is 5 people to subscribe to the channel, and we will be at 92,000. Okay, I need 4 people. Don't hate watch. You're not gonna sit up here and hate watch me. You're gonna subscribe to this channel. 3 people. I need 3 people to subscribe to the channel. I need 3 more people. Look where we at. I want y'all to see where we at. Okay? See that? See, you can't see. It's almost. I need 3 people to subscribe to the channel, and I get back to work. I got more to say. I'll talk to you. 2 people. I need 2 people. I got 92,598 people. Subscribe to the channel now. 1 person. I need 1 person to get me to 92,600. And I get back to work. I'm going to get back to work as soon as y'all give me my 92,600 people. There we go. Praise God. See, that wasn't so hard, was it? Now let's get back. Let's get back to where we at. I'd like to thank all the crusty feet people, all the ladies with bonnets on. Okay. I'd like to thank all the angry Muslims, all the white supremacists. Everybody's welcome here with Uncle D, baby. Everybody welcome to get this work. Uncle D is passing out the truth over here. I'm here to hurt your ears, make you feel bad. Yeah. Next time they tell you don't eat that pork sandwich, brother. You know you worshiping the damn racist ass religion. You got that brother-in-law trying to, yeah, man, when you gonna come down to the mob? You know you're racist, man. But anyway. All right, yeah, man. So anyway, let's get back to the work. Let's get back to work. Somebody type, where Casta? I want to say, where Casta? Y'all need to tell me, where Casta? I need you to look, see the speed all the time with the hit the like button. What if I do not want to subscribe to your stupid channel? Okay? Okay, I don't want to do this. Okay, you know I will not. You are a racist. You are a racist because you say things that I don't want to hear. Okay, work harder. Work harder. That's what you need to do. Okay, okay. But anyway. Oh man. So look, again, we didn't and I talked about this earlier, man. We were not passive, okay? But the question is, again, what happened to Black grandma? And as you saw earlier, if you go down to that museum in Mexico City, well, let me start by saying this. Interracial relationships, they increased over time in Mexico, and the Catholic Church allowed marriage between different racial groups, and the children born to those enslaved African women and Spanish men, and we call them Spanish, but we know what was going on, right? They were often classified under specific racial categories. And in some cases, the children born to enslaved women could gain freedom and they got legal status. They could inherit, so they became rich. So it was an incentive to, hey, the kid's gonna be all right, And so as racial mixing increased, the colonial authorities tried to control it and organize it, and they created a system known as the Casta system, okay? A caste system, all right? And this system ranked people based on their ancestry and their skin color. And at the top were the Spaniards. I talked about that earlier, born in Spain. Below them were the Spaniards born in Americas, and below them were the mixed groups. Okay, and that classification followed a pattern. Spanish parent, indigenous parent, mestizo. All right? So you see now why a lot of these people want to say, I'm mestizo. Spanish parent, mestizo produced a castizo. Okay, a castizo and a Spanish parent were often classified as Spanish again. So you can work your way. So better the race means more opportunity. We might get back to being Spanish again. That's our goal. Mejor la raza, Blanqueamiento, whiten the race so we can get back to being Spanish. This is a cultural goal. This is what cultural racism looks like. And so a Spanish parent and an African parent produce a mulatto, and from there the categories multiplied into more complex labels. In the 1700s, you had the artists that create the Castilla paintings, and those paintings usually came in sets of 16 images, right? I mean, they literally had this stuff in their houses. Let me see if I can put this back. I'm not gonna play it. But this is what it looked like, okay? So imagine that this is what you have going in your house. This is how this culture was born. Okay.
By the end of the 17th century.
Look at that. All right. This is how this culture was born. Yeah. Look at that. That's what those look like. Those are Castilla paintings, usually 16 of them. And they showed a man, a woman, and a child, and they labeled them according to the racial mixture. And the goal was to visibly display the results of racial mixing, at least what you should look like. Can you imagine? You a white Spanish dad, and you got an indigenous wife, and you thought you was about to get a mestizo, and you hold that baby up next to that wall, and you trying to figure out which one of these pictures that baby look like. You're like, hold on a minute. This baby look like negro? Negro? No es castizo. El negro? That was a DNA test back then. She done messed around and got one of them Negroes and got that old black snake got it. Somebody type black snake. That old Mexican black snake got hold of her. That Veracruz black, she was out there hanging out at the polenta too much and got that old black snake and came back and just set you back a whole generation. You thought you had an indigenous woman, but you had a castiza. Okay, you had a castiza, and she done messed around and gave you a little Negro baby because she'd been hanging out at the polenta where they play the drums at. You turned your back for 1 minute, and she then went off and brought a mulatto back. And damn, now it's complicated. Somebody type, that black snake got it. We talked about that black. Remember Private Thomas? Private Thomas was helping re-educate the Nazi women up in Louisiana. That black snake. That somebody said that Veracruz oil pipeline. Yeah, that oil pipeline. That black gold. Oh man, can you imagine you a 16th century Spaniard, you holding that baby up to that wall? This baby don't look nothing like none of these pictures. This baby black as hell. What you been doing? What you been doing, Maria? Maria, you been out there? Damn, you done set me back. I bet he just cussing out in Spanish. This baby don't look. Where we gonna take this baby? Who is this baby for? In Spanish, right? ¿Qué pasa, la niño? La niño no mira de mí. ¿Por qué tú tienes negro en mi cama y mi casa? He just crying and shit. I mean, imagine the type of pressure that puts a woman on. What if the baby don't look like the pictures is supposed to look like? Here, you the baby mama, you like, oh Lord, you got 2 more months, the baby. You just hoping that the baby lighten up a little bit. The baby come out with dark ears. You're like, oh no. Oh, when babies come out, their ears show you the color they're gonna be. The baby might have slick hair and be light, but then them ears will give it away. If those ears are purple, that's a black baby. I've seen black babies come out, 2 black parents, and the baby come out light skin with slick hair. Yeah, give it a month. Give it about a month and a half. Put that baby in the sun. That baby gonna get right back to his natural color. Okay, but what if the baby don't that baby gonna get too dark, and then he gonna know, Pedro's gonna know that you've been hanging out at the polenta, Maria. But anyway, let me not get sidetracked. But anyway, so there was the images create this racial formula and to categorize. It's a recipe. You put this together, you got that. They had it all figured out. This is pseudoscience at its best. And Spanish plus indigenous equal mestizo, Spanish plus African equal mulatto, mestizo plus Spanish equal castizo, and the system tried to define social status based on ancestry. And these classifications, they were not neutral. They were tied to privilege. And the closer someone was to Spanish ancestry, the more rights and opportunities they had. And so African ancestry was ranked low at the bottom. And so this is part of the reason why they tried to erase it. Nobody wanted to be black. They wouldn't even tell you they black if they were black. It's a lot of Mexicans that are passing right now. That's basically what you're learning. You got 16 categories, you got multiple shades, you got one hierarchy, and the paintings remain powerful evidence of how colonial society tried to organize race and identity and power. Now, by 1810, the idea of freedom was spreading, okay? But and I think I talked a little bit about Yanga. Let me talk a little bit about Yanga. I'm not gonna have y'all here too much longer because we coming up on this 3-hour limit, and I gotta chill out. But Yanga was, Gaspar Yanga. He was one of the most famous escaped slaves. Around 1570, he escaped from a sugar plantation near Veracruz. And Yanga and his followers, they went up into the highlands near what is now the state of Veracruz, where they built a palenque. And it grew over many years. People kept running away. We're going to go hang out with Gaspar the Yanga. We're going over there with the Yanga. And his town located a few hours inland from Veracruz, but before it became a town, it was rebellion, okay? Yanga was enslaved African under Spanish rule. And this was 50 years before the Mayflower. He was already fighting, right? And they went into the mountains, and the terrain was rough. It was covered with thick forest. It was difficult for the Spanish soldiers to get in there. They built hidden settlements. They grew crops. They organized themselves. They had children. They defended their freedom. And for 30 years, Yanga and his community resisted Spanish control. They used guerrilla war tactics. They attacked the Spanish routes. They took supplies. They got in, they got out, they went back into the mountains. Them Spanish, you ain't gonna catch them. You are not gonna catch them, sir. They were gone. They were ghosts. All right, and the Spanish sent in expeditions to crush it. They couldn't get them. They couldn't defeat them. And so they finally quit. The Spanish quit. 1609, after decades of conflict, the Spanish said, you know, it's not going, we can't do it. It's not going to be easy to subdue these people. We're just spending resources if we continue fighting. So they negotiated. The Spanish said, look, just leave our stuff alone. we just leave our stuff alone. We just trying to get to the Pacific Ocean at this point. And so Yanga accepted the deal, and the settlement was officially recognized in the early 1600s. It's called San Lorenzo de los Negros, of the black. San Lorenzo of the black. And over time, it became simply known as Yanga. And it named after its founder. And still today, it exists in the state of Veracruz, right there. And many of the historians believe that this was the first free black town in the Americas. And Yanga was not just a runaway slave. He was a military strategist. He was a community leader, and he was a symbol of resistance. 30 years, this man fought the most powerful nation in the world and won. Okay, so I want y'all to remember that name on this Black History Month here in the Americas. I think it's important. I want foundational Black Americans to be the most knowledgeable group of people on this planet about African history. I want us to know our history better than, I want us to know history about our people as African people and people of African descent better than any other group. I want to know it. I want us to know it and be able to hold conversations everywhere, so nobody can pull anything past it. We can already read them. I know your history. There's nothing you can tell me. All right. Now here's the thing. So by 1810, the idea of freedom was spreading across the Americas. Look, they weren't going to be able to hold us. You're not just going to bring all these people over here. We were too attuned to the environment. This was, we were built for the environment, hot, tropical. You can't deal with us out here, okay? And the crazy part is the American Revolution happened in 1776 and the French Revolution happened in 1789. And it had already shaken these old world colonial powers. And so in Mexico, which was still called New Spain, okay? So Mexico wasn't Mexico. It was called New Spain. All right. So when we say we stole the land from Mexico, it wasn't even called Mexico. Mexico that had that land, what we call Texas and Arizona, New Mexico, and California. They had it for less than 30 years. Okay. Before that, it was New Spain, and they took it from Spain. But bottom line is the fight for independence officially began on September 16th, 1810. With a Catholic priest named Father Michael Hidalgo y Castilla. And he gave what is known as the Grito de Dolores. And Father Hidalgo called for an end to Spanish rule, and he spoke against the racial caste divisions. He declared the indigenous people mulattoes and others should be treated as equals and called them Americans instead of colonial subjects. The war lasted 11 years. From 1810 to 1821, it was long and violent. And after Hidalgo was captured and executed, they killed the Catholic priest. They killed him a year later. In 1811, the leadership of the movement passed to another priest. His name was Jose Maria Morales, or Morelos. And Morelos was mixed ancestry, okay? It was widely believed that he was a black man of African roots. Okay, let me see if I can pull some pictures up for you guys because I want you to see these people. This is what's going on in Mexico. Okay, this is what's going on in Mexico. Let me see if I can pull a photograph up. Okay, this is him here. Well, according to Wikipedia, this is what he looks like. You guys, let me know if you can see this photograph. This is the priest. So that's a black man in Mexico named Jose Maria Morales, and he was, as I said, he was of African descent. He organized a rebellion more effectively, and he even called for the abolition of slavery, right? So here's a black man, somebody type black man, black Mexican, okay, black Mexican man. And in 1813, he helped draft a document and demanded the independence and equality under the law. but the Morelos was captured and he was executed. So now 1850, it got him and killed him. So what happened after that? And some of you guys may remember this guy's name. After the death, the struggle continued under a man called Vicente Guerrero. You guys know who Vicente Guerrero is? Huh? Do we know who Vicente Guerrero is? Let me see if I can pull this up for you. He ended up being the second president of Mexico, another black man, okay? Another black man. Let me see. Now, I'm trying to understand now, what happened to Black Abuela? What did y'all do to her? Because it seemed like everybody of any significance that got Mexico's freedom was black or of mixed descent. Where did these people go? Where did they go? Why are they? Where are they? Okay? So this is Vicente Guerrero. Once you look at him, another black man. Okay? So we got two black men. Right? You understand what I'm saying? We got two so far. And he was openly of African descent. In other words, he was black. He was African and indigenous ancestry, and his enemies mocked him. They call him dark-skinned. They call him the Negro. But he didn't care. Okay? And he refused. They literally call him the Negro. All right, and he refused to surrender. And even when his own father, his own daddy, told him, hey, son, just make peace with Spain, his famous response was, La patria es primero, okay? La patria es primero. The homeland comes first. That's what he said. A black man said that. This is the liberator. This is their George Washington, if you will. So Guerrero helped carry the war to its conclusion in 1821. Mexico finally gained independence from Spain, and later in 1829, Guerrero became president of Mexico, and he officially abolished slavery nationwide. And the fact that an Afro-descendant leader, a black man like Morelos and Guerrero, played central roles in Mexico's independence, that's something that's overlooked. You never hear about that. Okay, they never tell you. It's a footnote. These Mexicans they don't tell you about that, right? But it's part of the historical record. And these men were not side figures. They were generals. They were national leaders. They were national. This is like George Washington and Ben Franklin. This is those guys level. See, the Mexican independence is not just about Spanish or indigenous. It's about the Afro-descendant story. Okay, and again, after years of war, Mexico finally won its independence in 1821. But the struggle for equality didn't end there. One of the most important leaders, as I just told you, Vicente Guerrero, an African man of indigenous descent, he became president in 1829, and that would make him the second president. And during the presidency, he took a bold step on September 15, 1829, and he abolished slavery throughout Mexico. I know Washington, D.C. was like, hold on a minute, okay? And this happened more than 30 years before the Emancipation Proclamation and before the Civil War. And his decision wasn't symbolic, it was a law. Slavery was ended nationwide. Guerrero pushed for a removal of the racial caste system and the racial language that had been used during the colonial period under the Spanish rule. People were labeled by race, mestizo, mulatto, castizo, and other categories. And after independence, those official caste labels were eventually eliminated, okay? From the legal documents, from the birth marriages, and the new republic aimed to treat people as citizens rather than racial rank. And so today, Guerrero is honored across Mexico. There's an entire state named Guerrero, and towns and cities carry his name. A black man. How can all you Mexicans be this racist and you got a black man who is the reason for your freedom? I don't understand that. And this is why I think it's just so disappointing. This is why I think that Blanqueamiento and racial caste system that these Mexicans, this is why it's disappointing to many of us and confusing. He's even on the currency. He's remembered as a hero of independence and a symbol of national pride, yet many don't always talk about him. They don't talk about his African descent. This is just something they talk about quietly, like that black grandma they had been hiding from us. But this man was a central leader in Mexico's independence. He became president. He abolished slavery. His words, La Patria es el primo, it still echoes right now. You understand what I'm saying? So when slavery ended in Mexico, first call, again, it wasn't easy. Okay? It was not easy. There's places, Guerrero and Ostapa. These places became many of the African descendant people. This is where they lived. Okay, so during the 15 and 1600s, a lot of Africans were brought to Mexico. I talked about Veracruz, and they were sent to these ranches and so on and so forth. And they migrated throughout different places. And a lot of these Afro-Mexican places survived. Whether we talk about Pinotipa, Ixtapa, we're talking about San Nicolas, which is in Guerrero. They're still there. They even have a museum of Afro-Mexican culture, and it was established in 1999, and it preserves the history of African descendant people in Mexico. And so despite their long history of Afro-Mexican history there, I mean, they've been there since before it was a country, they still face discrimination and invisibility. You act like they're not there. And for decades, Mexican census didn't even include the option of Afro-Mexican identity. It wasn't until 2015 that they came up with a pilot survey that officially counted Afro-Mexicans in 2020. I want you to keep in mind, you have black people to the tune of anywhere from 4,000 to 10,000 black people come from the United States, what we call the United States or Texas, the territory of Texas. Remember the Cherokee Indians brought us over there on the Trail of Tears because we were their slaves. And you also had white Texans bring us over there from Louisiana to get away from, to expand the territory going west. And between the mid 1850s, they say anywhere from 4,000 to 10,000 black people escaped to Mexico from Oklahoma, Indian Territory, specifically those reservations. Yeah, we had black people trying to escape the reservations. Those Native Americans were brutal. The Creek, the Choctaw, after the Civil War, before the Civil War, after they didn't even want to free us. They didn't free us till 3 years after the Civil War, and they had to be forced to do it. But what I'm trying to explain to you all is that even though there was black people who escaped the United States, a very few black people who escaped the United States and went to Mexico, it was black people already there, millions of them. They already had black people in Mexico. They already had people of African descent who had been descended from slavery in Mexico. It wasn't nothing new. They knew what black people looked like. It was already there. It's only the Mexicans pretending like, oh, we let y'all free. You already had your own informally enslaved black people there that you try to ignore. Somebody type black grandma in the chat room. You understand? They already had them there. Even in 2020, you can only get 2.5 million Mexicans to claim their African roots. In 2020. So they passed out a survey and they said, are you Afro-Mexican? Only that's 2% of the population. What, are you kidding me? They still won't claim it. But the presence goes back 400 years. Afro-Mexican culture, Costa Chica, includes the distinct dances, the musical rhythms, connected to African roots, the oral storytelling traditions, unique food practices, community festivals, even the physical features. You see the darker skin, the tightly curled hair that stand out in the country that promotes this Spanish indigenous narrative. And yet for generations, you got Afro-Mexicans labeled as moreno or folded into mestizo category, or their African ancestors just openly not discussed. And so after slavery ended, you got these Afro-Mexicans, they didn't disappear. They survived, they formed communities, they maintained traditions, but they were largely erased from the official story of the nation. And today, when people say they don't see Africans in Mexico, it's not because Africans weren't there. It's because Afro-Mexicans are pushed to the margins of the national narrative. But you got places like Costa Chica as proof that the African chapter in Mexico didn't end with slavery. It continued quietly, locally, often unrecognized, but for nearly 2 centuries after emancipation, the history still is unfolding. Okay, now where did they go? Well, the answer is, think about this. You got so many enslaved Africans. They were brought to Mexico. The common question, where did the black population go? How can these Mexicans not claim them? They don't, why, what is that? Okay? Why don't more people visually identify as black today? And the answer is not disappearing, it's mixing. They've mixed up enough that they can hide. You see what I'm saying? They mix themselves in enough that they can hide. Okay? So from the beginning of the colonial period, Africans, indigenous, and Europeans lived in close contact. They intermarried, they messed around with each other out in them cane fields. Over generations, the families blended, their labels changed. A person who might be called black in one generation, his children of mulatto or moreno or mestizo in the next. Over time, African ancestry was absorbed into the broader category. So, and some describe this as dilution, but more accurate is the word is integration through mixing. And the African presence didn't vanish, it blended. You can still see African influence today, especially in certain regions like Veracruz and Costa Rica. People in those areas are darker in complexion than the national average. But beyond appearance, African influence also shows up in the culture, especially in the language and the accent. For example, in parts of Veracruz, people sometimes drop the final S at their words, right? Like buenos, bueno. Don't we drop the S up here? That's an African trait. Huh? Don't we drop the S? He sings good. He sing good. Right? We don't say sings. He sings good. She sings good. She sings good. Hell, we might throw a sang. He sang good. You understand? The pronunciation of consonants sometimes soft. These speech patterns are common in African descended coastal communities and also found in the Caribbean and regions strong in African roots, and they're also found here in the United States. Languages changes when people mix, okay? Accents carry history. African influence in Mexico is present in music, in rhythm, food, speech. Is present in surnames and physical traits. And this is all throughout the Americas, okay? It may not always be openly labeled black, but some of these people who call themselves indigenous, they just black. The question is not whether the black population went. The question is how it was reclassified and renamed and blended into a larger story of the nation. The African presence in Mexico didn't disappear, it evolved. Look, in the United States, we have something called the one-drop rule, okay? Traditionally, if a person had even one drop of African blood or African DNA or African ancestry, they were legally and socially classified as black. It didn't matter how light their skin was. It didn't matter how mixed their background was. If you were African blood, you were considered black, period. I'm black in the United States. When I go places like Colombia or Brazil, I'm something else. Now, I tell them I'm black, and they say, no, you're not black. They might call me moreno, but I'm not black, okay? Same thing can happen to Moses. If you look at the average, if you go to a Popeye's chicken on Martin Luther King Boulevard, anywhere between Alabama and Louisiana, you're gonna see a bunch of people that if some people from these countries came up, they said, this one's black, that one's not. Blanca, mestiza, something else, okay? But because we have a flat blackness in this regard, we all say we operate under the one drop rule. We're all black. No different than if you go to a brunch on a Sunday. You go to brunch on a Sunday at about 1:30 in the afternoon when the mimosa get to going good, right? Yeah. Some of these people would be considered not black, but here in the United States, again, we follow the one drop rule, and that's a cultural difference. Again, that derives from that Northern European perspective on race, as opposed to the Iber Peninsula / the Spanish and Portuguese perception on race. All right? Now, I want you to think about this. If the one drop rule were applied in Mexico, many of those people who identify as mestizo or moreno, they would be classified as black under the American system, because after nearly 500 years of racial mixing between Spanish, indigenous, and African populations, African ancestry became so woven in, it's just in the family line. So what happens in between? Why did the United States develop this strict black or white system while Mexico developed a system of multiple racial categories? And again, the answer lies with the colonial history. The English colonies that became the United States, race was divided by very defined lines. Laws were created to prevent racial mixing, to clearly separate white from black. And over time, those legal rules hardened into social rules. In Spanish colonies like Mexico, racial mixing was common from the beginning. Instead of creating a simple black and white system, the Spanish created a caste system. And with many categories, mestizo, mulatto, castizo, moreno, and others, this system still ranked people by color and ancestry, but it allowed mixture to be renamed and reclassified, and you weren't penalized. You have a child by a black woman here in the United States in Virginia in the 1700s, that child was a slave. Down there, that child could inherit. Okay, so there was an incentive. It wasn't a big deal. Okay, over generations, African ancestry was absorbed into the broader categories. A family might move from mulatto to mestizo to simply Mexican. An African root did not disappear, it was relabeled. And nearly 500 years have passed since the enslaved Africans were brought to Mexico in the early 1500s. And over the centuries, the names changed, the labels shifted, identities blended, but history doesn't vanish just because it's renamed. So when people whisper about what happened to the black grandma, the family tree, the real question is whether she existed. That's not the question. We know she was there, okay? And when you start asking questions about Mexico's missing black population, the answer often becomes personal. Many of these families, African ancestry wasn't openly discussed. It was not celebrated. It was punished. Remember, you were punished if you were black. You didn't have the opportunities. It was not passed down proudly. Instead, it was often left out of the story because there was no incentive in being black, okay? Because these people were trying to assimilate. And many people only discover their African roots later after doing research or studying history or tracing their family roots or listening to somebody like me that's hitting you upside the head. I got a lot of Mexicans gonna be looking at this and looking at their people sideways, you know, at the next get together that they have, the next quinceañera. But see, the thing is, when these kids, when they go back and ask their parents or their grandparents, a response can be telling. Why didn't you tell me we are black? And the answer is gonna be, we're not black, we're morenos. And morenos usually means brown or dark skin, but it's often used to avoid saying black. It softens the identity, it shifts the label, it creates distance. In many cases, families are aware of their African ancestry, or somebody is, okay? They may not know about a darker skinned grandparent or a great grandparent, but instead of calling it black, they rename it. They fold it into the broader category. They move it into the background. And this is what people sometimes refer to as the black grandma in the closet. It's the quiet family secret, acknowledged privately, but rarely spoken about publicly. And this pattern didn't happen by accident. Centuries of colonial racial ranking that put African ancestry at the bottom. And that stigma did not disappear overnight. It shaped how families talked about identity. It shapes how these Mexicans perceive us as foundational black Americans. They can't understand why we proud to be black. That's why they don't even know black people and they make up stuff about black people. But nevertheless, when someone says we are moreno, it often reflects more than skin color. It reflects history. It reflects survival. It reflects a long-standing discomfort of openly claiming their African heritage. The African presence didn't vanish. It was renamed, okay? But again, when you hear somebody talk about mestizo, moreno, indigenous, those are just words, okay? Those are just words. But I want to make sure that I read these super chats. I want to make sure I thank everybody who contributed to the super chats. We got 11 super chats. That is amazing. Thank you all so much. I've had actually 11 people learn. Because see, I have a rule, you don't owe me anything, unless you actually learn something. So the way I base how effective I am is by, how many people learn something is by the super chats. And so apparently only 11 people learned something today. And gosh, I'm just going to have to do a much better job. I mean, I'm really, really disappointed in myself because here I've talked for 3 hours, apparently, and only 11 people have learned anything. And it's a very complicated subject that you won't really hear other people talk about on a live because it doesn't really pay a lot. Okay, nobody's going to talk about this. What they want to talk about the NBA All-Star game and how raggedy it was. They want to tell you that, the Africans are being deported even faster. They want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about this. This is too, so, but I appreciate the 11 people that did learn something. It's unfortunate the other 500 to 600 people who were here didn't learn anything. That makes me sad. I need to do better. Somebody type Uncle D do better in the chat room. I need to do better. Maybe I need to pull my glasses down more like that so I can see more. Because clearly I'm failing at my job as talking about these social, bringing understanding to you folk, clearly. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and give a shout out to the people with the cash apps because I appreciate them. We got a couple of people with cash apps. Somebody type Black Grandma in the chat room. All right, the Black Grandma in the chat room. Let's see. I want to thank Brendan Morgan. Thank you so much. Who else I want to thank? I want to thank Angela Harris. I'd like to thank Marcia. Marcia, thank you so much, Marcia. Oh, a little Latina lady. Thank you so much, Marcia. I appreciate it. I'm glad you learned something too, baby. You go bring your Black Grandma out the closet now. Now, I want you to go look for them pictures. Next time you go down there, I want you to ask somebody, did we have la Abuela Negra? ¿Por qué tú no hablas la Abuela Negra? ¿Por qué? Porque ¿dónde está? ¿Cómo se llama ella? You ask, I want you to start asking questions. Get your little DNA test. Thank you so much, baby. Marcia, that's a beautiful name, too. Thank you for Toot Rib 211. Did I say Angela Harris? Shout out to you twice, and also thank Brenda Morgan. All right, let's get to these ample super chats. Let's go ahead and talk about them. We got 11 actually, we don't have 11 super chats. We got 2 memberships, so we got 9 super chats. That is amazing that I've talked here for 2 hours, 3 hours, and only 7 people have learned something. But anyway, I guess I'll do better. Anyway, y'all, Urban Eagle, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. Mr. Ghosting, welcome to the membership. Thank you so much, family. Sleepy G, can I at least get 15? Can we get 15 super chats? That's crazy, 15. But only if you learn something. You don't owe me anything. You didn't get nothing. I don't get nothing. Let's get the donations up. Thank you for the $2 super sticker, Sleepy G. 562 Canary said, I'm always learning. You're brilliant, educated. Thank you so much, man. I try to break it down with a cows can eat it. I try to give y'all something. I try to give it to you piece by piece and make it interesting. But, I do the best I can. Thank you so much. Again, real talk. Thank everybody for the super chats, man. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you spending all this time with me, learning these things that nobody else wants to learn. It gives me a lot of fulfillment. So don't forget that. Just you being here means a lot to me. Let's go. During the Inquisition, it wasn't safe to be in Spain if you did not come from a traditional Catholic family. Wow, good information. Learning something, Red Sigma. Thank you so much. All right. Eddie Washington 6452. I got 5 on it. Man, you got 20 on it. You did that. Good looking out. And also Sage Talk. Great show, very informative. Welcome to the 7 months you've been in. Cool, cool. All right, and Mexican sellout culture. All right, so we got 11 super chats. Shout out to everybody who came through with the 11 super chats. Thank you so much. I humbly appreciate what you guys did. I will be back tomorrow. We'll have another more. This is just something I had to do. I wanted to get it out because it lays the foundation for some other things that we need. If you guys haven't noticed, what I try to do is lay the foundation for another series of broadcasts. And it's important that we begin to understand not just what's going on in America, but to get the whole picture. Unless you actually have the whole picture, you can't, unless you have everything, you can't quite conceptualize what's going on. So this is why it's important for us to know everything. But anyway, as we close out tonight, and we got 11 super chats, I want to acknowledge those people. I appreciate you all humbly. I humbly appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. And again, if you didn't learn anything, I don't earn anything. Don't feel guilty. You don't owe me anything. Now, I do need you to subscribe to the channel, and I need you to hit the notification button because YouTube has been playing horrible games with me for years, and we are on the cusp of getting 100,000 subscribers, and we're almost at, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. I think last time I checked, we're getting closer to 95,000. So I need you all to go ahead, and if you haven't already, if you appreciate the work I'm doing, please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, so go ahead and do that. If you guys are still with me, hit the number 1 button. Let me know that you're number 1. If you're still with me, hit the number 1 button. Let me know that you're number 1. Hit the number 1 button. Let me know that you're number 1, so I'll know how to treat you. Hit the number 1 button. Let me know that you're number 1. But anyway, yeah, that's right. Do that. So we started off trying to solve the mystery of what happened to the black grandma under the context that we have too many racist Mexicans here in the United States that we've discovered who want to assimilate and who want to be classified as white. How can a group of people with this much African heritage, almost as much African heritage as black Americans, how could they ever consider themselves to think that they could be white? Again, this brings confusion to foundational black Americans because what we are not is we're not a group of people who assimilate, okay? Now, the good thing for us, we can see our black grandmas. That's my black grandma over there to the left, over my shoulder, right? I keep her out and about, all right? And everybody has got a black grandma. So the thing we have to ask ourselves, the answer is not disappearance. The answer is absorption through a caste and reclassification when we ask the question, solving the mystery of what happened to the black grandma. And when we look at the historical record, which the documents lay out, which I talked about, black history in Mexico, enslaved Africans were brought to Mexico in large numbers beginning in the 1500s. By the mid-1600s, in some regions, blacks and mulattoes were closer in number to the whites. They worked the mines, the sugar fields. Big shout out to Big J. Thank you. You got me to 12. Maybe we get to 15 super chats. Good looking out, brother. I appreciate it. I'm glad you learned something. But I'm going to get back to this guy. I got to get this work in. They worked the mines. They worked the sugar fields. They worked the ranches. They worked the ports. They worked the cities. Remember you learned they were diving down in the water. This is how they got the core. Those nice, when you go to Veracruz, those core walls were built by Mexicans. Are you kidding me? Think about that. Right? That's crazy. They were built by black Mexicans, black men from Africa, right? But anyway, so the question is not whether they were there. The question is what happened next. And here's what happened. The racial mixing was legal and common. And unlike British and North America, Spanish colonial Mexico allowed racial mixing. Spanish men had children with indigenous and African women. Those children were not automatically placed into a strict black category like in the US with the one drop rule. Instead, they were given new labels. They were called mestizo, they were called mulatto, they were called castizo, they were called moreno. All right, the caste system allowed upward reclassification. Over generations, a family could move from mulatto to mestizo to simply Spanish in official documents. African ancestry didn't disappear biologically, it disappeared administratively. It was relabeled, okay? And after independence, the labels changed again. When Mexico gained independence in 1821 and slavery was abolished in 1829, the official caste category were gradually removed from legal documents. The national identity shifted to mestiza, and the idea of Mexico was a blend of Spanish indigenous ancestry. African ancestry was just absorbed into the broader mestizo category. Okay? They got rid of it. It disappeared. Okay? Okay? And then Blanqueamiento, this is the whitening ideology. Over time, lighter skin became associated. Remember those white people I put at the top? The Lebanese, the Jewish people, right? Remember I talked about those folk coming over? They came over in different waves. All right? They were associated with education and mobility and status. Families often emphasize European and indigenous roots and downplayed the African. The term like moreno replaced negro, which means black. The identity softened, the label changed. And then here's another thing. You had to deal with censure erasure. You might be looking a person of African descent in your face, but Mexico didn't officially recognize Afro-Mexicans in the census until 2020. And so for nearly 200 years after this country became a country, after it got independence, there was no formal category. That's how invisible it had become, right? Who wants to remember their greatest sin, the enslavement of Africans? They don't, right? So what happened to the black grandma? What happened to La Abuela Negra? She didn't vanish, she was renamed, she was reclassified, she was folded into mestizo. She was purposely forgotten, she was ignored, she was described as moreno. And she's remembered quietly but not publicly claimed. And so under the US one-drop rule, many of those families would be classified as black. Under Mexican's caste system, those same families were gradually absorbed into the broader national identity. The African presence didn't disappear. It was diluted in paperwork and softened in language and minimized in national storytelling. That is the real answer. See, the black grandma is not a myth. She was the result of 500 years of racial mixing combined with 500 years of racial hierarchy. And once you understand that system, the mystery is no longer mysterious, it's historical. Now, let me say this plainly. Mexico received hundreds of thousands of enslaved Africans. That's not an opinion. That is documented history. The same transatlantic system that brought Africans to the United States also brought them to New Spain, which is now Mexico. The difference? Foundational Black Americans embraced our blackness. We fought through slavery. We fought through Jim Crow. We fought through lynching. We fought through segregation. We fought through policies that literally inspired the Nazi race laws. And we didn't erase ourselves to survive. We built culture. We built identity. We built power from it. We didn't rename ourselves to feel safer or to make others feel comfortable. And so, or to try to get some butter biscuits from the system. So when I see people blending themselves into European proximity, highlighting their Iberian blood or their Lebanese ancestry or Mediterranean connections, while pretending Africa wasn't there, that's not pride, it's insecurity. Your African roots are not a liability. They're your rhythm, they're your food, they're your musical foundation, they're your cultural energy, they're your resistance history. Veracruz drums, Costa Chica dance, Son Jarocho rhythms, mofongo, yuca, polyrhythms, call and response. That pulse is not coming from Madrid, SA, or Vato. You can't surgically remove Africa from Latin America and still explain its soul. And here's the hard truth. Chasing whiteness does not guarantee acceptance. It never has, and history proves that. Even groups that are considered European, the Italians, the Polish, the Romanians, history proves that even groups once considered, look, There's a fight for inclusion in Anglo-America. Some white people aren't even white enough. Whiteness in the U.S. has always been conditional and political. So why chase conditional acceptance? Why dilute yourselves to try to fit into a category that was never designed for you? Black Americans don't look to assimilate because we understand something clearly. Survival without identity is hollow. We would rather die being black than live trying to be an assimilated wannabe white person. That ain't us. See, we maintain our culture because we loved ourselves and we had to because we did it. And we did it because it was necessary. It's unbreakable. If you want strength, it's not in denial. It's in ownership. Own it. Embrace your indigenous ancestry. Acknowledge your African roots. Understand your European history. But don't pedestalize it. Because what separates Latin culture from Spain is not geography. It's mixture. It's survival. It's African endurance. It's indigenous foundation. You don't get to erase that and still claim authenticity, and the perception can lie. History doesn't. And see, and the truth is simple. Africa is not an addition to Latin America. It's part of its foundation. And let me bring this all home by saying this. At some point in the next 40 or 50 years, Latin or Latino people are going to be a major minority in this country. And if you bring that Blanqueamiento and that caste system and that racism that you all try, it ain't gonna work with us. I can tell you now, foundational Black Americans have a culture built that's outlasting white supremacy racism, real white supremacy. And so all it's gonna create is conflict. So you all need to do whatever you need to do to get in contact with your African selves. Y'all need to pray to your ancestors. Somebody get some incense for these people, because it's not going to be that type of party. We know who you are. We see what you've been doing when you get your numbers. And so you all need to recognize that. It's not going to fly with us. We're a tough group of people, but we're a loving group of people. We're an understanding group of people. And I hope that you all take this message from a place of love. I don't think any black person holds any ill will towards any of y'all, particularly or generally as a group, but that racism has got to go. I hope you all have an opportunity to use this as a wake-up call. Your secret black grandmother in these Latino families is really just a euphemism for you all to reach out and get in contact with yourselves. I hope that you do that. Nevertheless, this is Uncle D. I appreciate you all, as I always say at this time. I'm out.
In the Spurling podcast, hit the like button, subscribe.